At the end of the Ice Age, I accumulated tens of billions of supplies. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 851 Outbreak. Zhu Yunk and Sunuanxi were on their way back. Sunuanxi also asked Zhu Yunk, "Senior sister, those people in the cabin on the bottom are so pitiful. Have you thought of how to help them?" Zhu Yunk's mood became a little irritable. If she had a way, wouldn't she have used it long ago? Let's discuss it with Mr. Zhang later. If it doesn't work, I'll beg my uncle for mercy and let him come forward to talk to Mr. Zhang. She didn't want to go to Zhu Zhang for this kind of thing. She mentioned this kind of thing when she reported work to Zhu Zhang before. But Zhu Zhang showed complete indifference and instead criticized Zhu Yunk for taking matters into his own hands. After all, that was the ruthless person who decided to exclude more than 1,000 million people from Blizzard City with a wave of his hand. He doesn't take human life seriously at all. But Zhu Yunk can't help it. She has no ability herself and can only ask for help. If neither of them paid attention to her, she would probably hide under the quilt and make a bunch of little pearls. At noon, it's time to put out the meal. Everyone in the bottom cabin has been waiting for this moment. On the weekend, there is stew in the rice today. The fatty meat that they would never eat in peacetime is now the most delicious thing that everyone desires. The crewman guarding the door opened the chain, and a beam of light shot into the cabin from above. Changming came out of the light and put bucket after bucket of food on the floor of the cabin. Since the last Yamada Masanami incident, he has lost his helpers and can only do it himself every time. Freshly prepared meals. The newly steamed rice is steaming with white smoke. The aroma of stewed meat instantly filled the entire dark and humid lower cabin due to the power of technology and hard work. Suddenly there was a sound of Gilu and Gilu swallowing saliva in the air. I don't know how many pairs of eyes were staring at the food, and their eyes almost glowed green, like hungry wild dogs. But no one dared to run over and fight for it. They seemed to be waiting for something. Soon, the door to the last room in the cabin opened. Zaku, the leader of the stowaway gang, was also attracted by the smell of meat and walked out of the room. Behind him were 4 or 5 younger brothers. The long-term obedience to him in the cabin and Lu Dahei's show of weakness made him relax his guard. If a lion passes by a flock of sheep, will it consider that the sheep dare to attack it? When Zaku saw the bucket of stew, he couldn't help but swallowed several times. His pace quickened, and he hurried to the rice pail. His big black hairy hands didn't care about the heat, and he grabbed a large piece of stew and stuffed it into his mouth. The feeling of the hot fat filling his mouth almost made him tremble with happiness. This sense of happiness made him unaware of the murderous intentions around him. Lu Dahei and others appeared in front of the cabin door. He took out the toothbrush from his sleeve and quickly rushed to Zaku. Without shouting or warning, he just threw himself in front of Zaku and used all his strength to plunge the tip of his toothbrush into Zaku's neck. Things happened so fast that both Zaku and the younger brother behind him were distracted by the stew. PFFT. The toothbrush pierced Zaku's neck directly, and blood spurted out. Zaku's mouth was filled with oil. The sudden pain made his eyes widen, and he suddenly fell to the ground. But this weapon was not a knife after all. It only penetrated a third of the way, which was not enough to be fatal. Without any hesitation, Lu Dahei sat directly on Zaku's body, pulled out the toothbrush, and thrust it in again. Zaku's mouth was full of fat, and he didn't even scream. After struggling for a few times, there was no movement. When he died, his eyes were full of astonishment. He didn't expect that these cowardly sheep would actually dare to resist and have the guts to kill him. Not only was Zaku dumbfounded, the situation of the others was not much better. Even the other people who agreed to cooperate in overthrowing the stowaway gang looked blankly at Lu Dahei, who had blood on his face. Whoever wins, will they help? If Lu Dahei hadn't eliminated Zaku cleanly, they might not have had the courage to rush forward at the critical moment. As for Zaku's younger brothers, they weren't much better. They were all frightened. After they woke up, their first reaction was to run back and scream. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Lu Dahei laughed and then roared violently. His eyes looked fiercely at the people watching in the cabin. At this time, everyone realized that Zaku was dead. Although they cannot provide help in times of need, they have the traditional virtue of icing on the cake. The fisherman gang took out their own weapons one after another. Some used sharpened toothbrushes, some used dismantled toilet seats, and some even dismantled a section of bed legs. As long as something could be used to kill people, they used their richest imagination to create the most vicious and cruel weapons in their minds. Kill. Zhang Yi roared and took the lead in charging. Dozens of them swarmed forward, but the few members of the stowaway gang couldn't resist at all, and they were all quickly thrown to the ground. Then all kinds of weapons came up. Blood spurted out, as if it was free of charge. Blood inspires people's most instinctive ferocity. Those few minions were beaten to pieces on the spot, and their heads were not human-shaped. Lu Dahei walked to the front and shouted, "Kill all those vampires, and get our food back." The people from the fisherman's gang rushed forward, and the others followed behind with red eyes. After being bullied for days, the emotions squeezed inside suddenly burst out. On the stowaway gang's side, someone had noticed something was wrong and quickly closed the door. "Mr. Zaku is dead. They want to kill us. Block the door quickly, block it." They quickly threw everything that could stop them. But in the bottom cabin, Zhang Yi had cleared away most of the dangerous things in order to prevent them from causing trouble. Apart from the bed, there wasn't even a detachable table inside. How could a single bolt stop so many people trying to kill them? The iron door was knocked open only twice before the latch broke. Lu Dahei held a bloody toothbrush in his hand and just glanced at the stowaways in the room. Kill. He didn't have any unnecessary nonsense. He just roared angrily. The two sides started a bloody melee. The people who are red-eyed about killing have only one thought in their minds at this time, which is to kill all these guys in front of them. After enduring hunger for more than 10 days, the suppressed hatred in their hearts was released in an instant, making them more terrifying than jackals. The members of the stowaway gang were not willing to wait for death, so they tried to find ways to fight back. But regardless of whether they were calculating or not, it was the fisherman's gang and the people in other cabins who were more prepared. For this battle, they all had killing tools and wore thick clothes. Chapter 852 Panic. In the bottom cabin, the killing began. Toothbrushes were stabbed into the necks and eyes of one person after another, and wooden sticks were hit on the head and body. They don't have very good killing weapons, so their efficiency is very low. Even when people are fighting together, they can only choose to use clothes as weapons to strangle each other. This kind of close quarters fighting, a scene where a group of people are tightly entangled and rolling on the floor, is full of the most primitive blood. The people who were red-eyed by the killing were also shrouded in the fear of death deep in their hearts. At this time, many people can no longer even figure out who is the enemy and who is their comrade in arms. Their relationship was not very close to each other, and accidental injuries often occurred due to unfamiliarity with each other. Wails and screams filled the entire lower cabin. Above them, the people from the Yanliu group noticed something was wrong immediately. The shrill screams, like demons from hell, kept coming from under the floor. The ferocious cry woke up some people who were still sleeping. What's going on? Where is the sound coming from? Down below. It's the shouting below. Is this a fight? Many people quickly lay down on the floor to listen to the sounds below. Soon, their eyes widened. It's killing. There's killing below. The people in the Yanliu group were trembling with fear. Compared with the people in the bottom cabin, their living environment is very superior. There are plenty of food and eating supplies every day. Over time, they have long lost their understanding of death and chaos. It was only now that they recalled the horror on Rock Current Island. She Haicheng quickly got up from the floor. In order to claim credit, he rushed out of the door immediately, then came to the cabin door and smashed it with all his strength. It's killing people. There's killing people down there. At this time, most of the crew were still eating, and only a few crew members were patrolling. They have not yet discovered the tragic situation in the lower cabin. However, She Haicheng's cry attracted their attention. When a crew member heard the words killed, he frowned and walked over. Through the gap in the cabin door, he raised his gun and asked, "What's going on? What are you shouting for?" She Haicheng stared and said with some horror, "Down below, there are murderers in the cabin below." At this time, the crew member listened carefully, and sure enough, he vaguely heard bursts of shrill shouts from below. He looked solemn and immediately returned to the control room. In the control room, the crew member responsible for monitoring was eating while leisurely crossing his legs and watching everything happening in the cabin. "A fight?" asked the crew member who came over. As he spoke, he moved closer and looked at the scene on the surveillance screen. However, there was no look of panic or fear on his face. Instead, he slowly showed a weird smile and then slowly sat down and watched it with the crew member who was watching the surveillance. Who were the people fighting? Was it the previous group of stowaways and the fishermen? Isn't that right? I have already said that they will have to fight sooner or later. It is true. Hey, it looks like the fishermen have the upper hand. Not bad at all. As expected of Lu Dong's man. At first I was worried that he would get killed by those smugglers. Hehe, that's so interesting. I thought those Nanyang guys who smuggled across the border had some strength. I didn't expect them to be a group of frogs in the well. Croak croak. Do you want to tell Boss Cheyenne? Boss Cheyenne is eating. I'll call him later. It looks like the fight will last for a while. Why are you anxious? The two of them didn't look anxious at all. They just sat in front of the surveillance video and quietly admired everything. In order to save face for Li Zhang and others, the middle cabin, where the Yanliu group is located, only has surveillance cameras installed in public areas such as corridors. But the bottom cabin was previously a storage area, so every space was monitored. It can be said that in recent times, everything that happened here has been completely controlled by the people on the ship. Maybe in the dark night, the details of their plan were not very clear. But every crew member on this ship is an experienced sailor and warrior. Just through some macro details, you can feel that there will be such a large-scale fight sooner or later. No one cared about the fight, because everything is within their expectations, we can even say. Except for Zhu Yang and Sunuangsi, who were the most innocent and had no fear of the apocalypse. Everyone else had already expected what would happen today. On the top floor, Zhang Yi and Zhao Ken were wearing pajamas, enjoying breakfast leisurely, and watching programs on the big screen TV. Zhu Yang and Sunuangsi were woken up by the child, and had already started their daily work of coaxing the child. Lao Shan and the other sailors were having breakfast, chatting about gossip to relieve their boredom. Occasionally, a live actor would come and perform a talk show. On the bottom cabin, the shouts of fighting were heartbreaking and terrifying. Killing like crazy. Everyone is killing like crazy. At the beginning, you can still clearly identify your own people and the stowaways. But after the fight, everyone was covered in blood, and there were no obvious signs, so accidental injuries abounded. There are also people who take advantage of the chaos to launch sneak attacks on people they usually dislike. A man picked up a bed leg and hit his boss on the back of the head. The boss never imagined that he would not die at the hands of a stowaway, but by the driver he had always trusted. "I'm sorry, your wife and I have been together for a long time." The driver looked at his body lying on the ground and said coldly. In order to fear that his death was not thorough enough, the driver did not forget to stab him in the head more than 10 times, and he refused to stop until the beating was bloody and bloody. There are also people who simply made a wrong call because they are afraid of being discovered by others and being punished in the future, so they just kill their companions without stopping. Later, many people began to have mental breakdowns and would kill people they saw. The people of the Yanliu group felt this tragic situation most deeply. Many lay on the floor listening to the sounds. Some people covered themselves in quilts and shivered out of excessive fear. Don't fight here. Have the people on the ship not taken action to suppress it yet? They have guns, so they can surely put an end to the chaos, right? But we've been fighting for so long and haven't heard any gunshots. Why haven't the people at the top taken action yet? In the rooms of Li Zhangyu and Zhang Wei, they and some children they were protecting on the island lived. Those were the students who were led by Li Zhangyu to Yanliu Island for vacation. Faced with such hell, Zhang Wei gently comforted the children and asked them to cover their ears and stop listening. She said to Li Zhangyu, "The fight down there has been going on for so long. I don't know what the chaos is like. Why haven't Captain Zhang and the others taken action yet?" At this time, the entrepreneur Marvin, who was on the bed opposite, was moving his legs to the window, taking his time to put on his sneakers. Perhaps this is the result they want. Chapter 853 The Secret. When Li Zhangyi and Zhang Yi heard what Ma Wenzheng was saying, they both looked at him. Li Zhangyi lowered his eyes and thought for a moment. He agreed with Ma Wenzheng's words. Zhang Yi asked in confusion, "Mr. Ma, what do you mean by these words? Are they just watching the people below doing whatever they want?" Marvin was closing his eyes, and when he opened them again, his eyes were full of compassion. Our ship is like an isolated island, and the supplies are limited. If I'm right, Mr. Zhang is a very rational person. He initially controlled the number of people on board the ship, to maintain balance on the ship so as not to cause a shortage of survival supplies. However, he did not expect that the young lady named ZHU took the decision without authorization, and added the burden of more than people to him. He raised a finger. This is about 12% of the excess. It's a very heavy proportion. If we don't find a solution, maybe all of us on the ship won't be able to survive. Zhang Yi was not stupid. She immediately understood the meaning of Ma Wenzheng's words. So, they deliberately allowed the killing below to reduce the number of people on the ship. Ma Wenzheng smiled slightly. To be precise, this is called personnel optimization. Zhang Yi frowned. She felt this was a little cruel. It's just that she also experienced the crisis on Yanliu Island, and it was not so innocent and ridiculous. I also understand in my heart that there is no other choice. It was just that there was such panic in her heart. But, the people in the bottom cabin were cleared at the beginning. If something happens again later, will it be our turn too? She looked at Li Zhangyi worriedly. This concern is not without reason. Zhang Yi gives people the impression that he is a ruthless person who can do such a thing. Li Zhangyi came over, held her slightly cold catkins, and comforted her. Don't worry, it won't be like that. We are still of great value to him. At this point, he paused slightly. Even if something happens, it won't be our turn. In other words, even if you perform population optimization, you must start with other people in the rock flow group. Zhang Yi sighed, but the worry on her brow could not completely disappear. Ma Wenzheng also lowered his head and thought for a moment, and finally shook his head helplessly. He didn't say much, because at this time, he could only choose to let fate happen. Even a big entrepreneur who is busy in the shopping mall cannot predict what accidents will happen on this voyage. Peace is the best in the world, but who can predict God's will? The worst outcome is that none of them can survive. It's not just them who have such concerns. In other cabins of the Yanliu group, everyone was also frightened out of their wits by the shrill screams below. Some people said in horror, "It's over, it's over, they are going to carry out a major cleaning. It will start with the bottom cabin, and it will be our turn soon." Bayemo covered himself in the quilt and said tremblingly, "Oh, my god. I knew this would happen. First it's Mr. Yamada, and then the passengers below. Isn't it going to be our turn soon? Damn it, if I had known I shouldn't have gotten on the ship in the first place." Zi Yunfen, who was on the upper bunk above him, was sweating coldly on his forehead and murmuring, "I knew it would be like this. They are not so kind to take us back. They must be afraid that we will reveal the secret and they will kill us all on the way. Damn it, damn it." He pounded the bed hard, gritted his teeth, and his expression was extremely ferocious. "I have said that the people of Huax's state cannot be trusted. If we believe that the Colombian ship will come to rescue us, we can just keep waiting." Cha Haicheng was sitting on the bed with a solemn and worried look on his face. They have experienced an apocalyptic crisis for half a year. Although the situation on Yanliu Island was not as tragic as Xianhai City, it still left a huge psychological shadow on them. In addition, they were on the ship and wandering at sea for more than 10 days, which further intensified their fear. Because on the island, they can still choose to escape when they encounter danger. But for them, the Jinfeng can be a shelter, but it can also become an inescapable prison. In this world without legal constraints, as long as Zhang Yi has a slight thought, they can all die without burial. But after hearing Zi Yunfen's words, he suddenly noticed something was wrong. She Haicheng stood up, walked to Zi Yunfen, and looked up at him. "What were you talking about just now? What secret?" Zi Yunfen was covering his head and going crazy. Cha Haicheng had to grab his sleeve and question loudly before he came back to his senses. Zi Yunfen smiled coldly, "I don't know. But if you think about it carefully, Yanliu Island is thousands of kilometers away from Huaxu Kingdom, and now we are in such a difficult situation. Even Colombia, which has the strongest navy in the world, has no time to come to rescue people. Why would they not hesitate to cross the ocean, to come and save us? I know those Huaxu people very well. If it wasn't profitable, they wouldn't do such a thing. Zi Yunfen said this, as if he was not from Huaxu Kingdom. However, although everyone present had sarcastic smiles on their lips, they were not surprised in their hearts. Because basically everyone who comes from Huaxu Kingdom will spare no effort to discredit that country. If not, how can their choice be justified? Zi Yunfen's eyes widened, bloodshot eyes filling his pupils. So, they must be plotting something. There must be a big secret among us, especially Li Zhang. These words made everyone in the cabin start to think. The secret, you are right, the secret must be with Li Zhang and the others. Otherwise the captain would not be so polite to them, and would even be willing to take us foreigners back home for their sake. She Haicheng's eyes became a little excited. As long as we can master this secret, wouldn't we have a bargaining chip to survive? What is the secret? After staying on Yanliu Island for half a year, do we still not know anything about Li Zhang and his wife? Think about it quickly, think about it carefully. This might be our trump card to save our lives in the future. She Haicheng looked at everyone and asked them to use their minds as much as possible to recall everything that happened on Yanliu Island. At that time, everyone was busy surviving and even fell into desperate situations several times. In that kind of environment, any secret is worthless and they can't help but reveal it. But at the beginning, things that no one cared about may now become the key to their survival. Chapter 854. Ask Miss ZHU to make peace. The killing in the lower cabin lasted for more than 2 hours. I don't know how many people died, but every cabin was dripping with blood, and corpses were hung everywhere in the cabin. It wasn't until the movement almost disappeared that the crew member responsible for watching the surveillance told Lao Shan what had happened. After Lao Shan heard this, he knocked on Zhang Yi's door. Mr. Zhang, it's already down there now. Lao Shan said a few words in Zhang Yi's ear. There was no expression on Zhang Yi's face. I understand. He glanced at ZHU Young's house next to him. Go and notify Miss ZHU and let her handle it. She was the one who put the stowaways on board, so of course she had to deal with this problem. Zhang Yi has already said this. Even if it was earlier, if it weren't for ZHU Young's words, Zhang Yi wouldn't have planned to take everyone in the bottom cabin with him. Lao Shan nodded knowingly. Zhang Yi returned to the room and showed a strange smile to Zhao Keita, who was wearing a silk nightgown. Put on your clothes and I'll take you to see the fun. Zhao Keita opened her beautiful eyes wide. Are you watching the excitement? On the other side, Lao Shan had already knocked on ZHU Young's door. At this time, ZHU Young looked a little tired. She and Sunu Anxi had just coaxed Tommy and let him fall asleep on the simple crib. Seeing Lao Shan early in the morning gave ZHU Young a suspicious expression on his face. Old Shan, what's the matter with you coming here so early in the morning? Lao Shan's face was full of solemnity. Ms. ZHU, something happened in the lower cabin. There was a fight between the people who got on the boat first and the people who got on the boat later. ZHU Young suddenly frowned. Why are they fighting? It will really cause trouble. You can just handle this little matter yourself. You don't need to come to me. Lao Shan said, but this time things were a bit big, and many people died. ZHU Young was startled. What? Many people died? How could this happen? Lao Shan said casually, it seems that there is not enough food, and after the identities of the stowaways were exposed, other people were dissatisfied. This kind of thing happens often at sea, and it's not uncommon. ZHU Young's little face suddenly turned pale, and his face, which was originally tired due to poor rest, now looked even more weathered. She couldn't help but take a few steps back, and almost fainted when her vision went dark. Miss ZHU, are you okay? ZHU Young couldn't believe that people in the bottom cabin died because of lack of food. How could someone kill someone just for a little food? She couldn't figure it out. And what was most difficult for her to accept was that this incident might have happened because of her. If someone died, wouldn't she be the culprit? No, you can't say that yet. Maybe they are not fighting over this issue, or maybe they have had conflicts for a long time. Zhu Yang murmured to herself that she was unwilling to accept the fact that she had made such a big mistake. Lao Shan said reluctantly, "It's very chaotic over there right now. You have to come with me to make an idea." Zhu Yang held his forehead and said, "I can't go. You'd better go find Mr. Zhang and let him handle this matter." She didn't want to face such a bad situation. Lao Shan smiled slightly. "The captain has said that you agreed to board those people, so you have to solve their problems. The captain will not care." Zhu Yang couldn't believe his ears. Did he really say that? He is the captain. How can he be so irresponsible? Even Lao Shan, who has a lot of social experience, couldn't help but be stunned when he heard Zhu Yang's words. With more than 20 years of skill in this punch, he really couldn't catch it. At this moment, Zhang Yi and Zhao Ke changed their clothes and came out of the room. I happened to hear the conversation between Lao Shan and Zhu Yang. Zhang Yi sarcastically said, "Why, has Miss Zhu forgotten what she has done and put all the responsibilities on others?" Lao Shan still had to give Zhu Yang some face, and he didn't dare to speak too frankly. But Zhang Yi would not spoil her at all. Zhu Yang became angry when he heard Zhang Yi's ridicule. I didn't say I didn't care. It's just that I've been a little uncomfortable taking care of the children these past 2 days. She didn't want to see blood. Zhang Yi did not let her go at all. "It's as if you are taking care of my child. No one begged you to do this. If you can only talk the talk, and if you can't actually do what you say, just admit it. I can handle this matter, but it's just a wash. It's just that, in that case, when something happens in the future, you can just shut your mouth quietly." Zhang Yi looked at Zhu Yang with a smile. His eyes were meaningful, full of sarcasm and contempt. This is what Zhu Yang can't stand the most. She was so angry that her blood suddenly surged up. "Who said I dare not go? Just go, no matter who you are afraid of." She closed the door with a bang, then pulled SYNOPSIS and asked her to change clothes and go over with her to take a look. SYNOPSIS had already heard the general idea and asked with some fear, "Aren't many people dead?" Zhu Yang said, "It's okay, it's just a small conflict over the fight for food. How can someone in this world risk their lives for a little food? I think they have already had conflicts. The guy surnamed Zhang wants to laugh at me all day long. I can't let him look down on me." Zhu Yang did not realize the seriousness of the problem at this time. Compared to her, SYNOPSIS had experienced some complicated things on Yanliu Island. But Zhu Yang said so at this time, and she couldn't refuse. After all, she was now Zhu Yang's little follower. The two changed their clothes and walked out of the room. Zhang Yi, Zhao Ke, and Lao Shan had already arrived outside the cabin, chatting leisurely, waiting for them to come over. Zhu Yang and SYNOPSIS walked to the door and saw Zhang Yi and Zhao Ke. Zhu Yang's expression was a little unhappy. She felt that Zhang Yi came here to see her laugh. But in fact it is true. Lao Shan led them in front, and on the way they encountered crew members holding rifles on guard. Lao Shan walked over and deliberately asked a crew member, "How is the fighting down there?" The crew member glanced at Zhang Yi and Zhu Yang and said, "Many people died. Their flesh and blood were so bloody that they couldn't even see." Zhu Yang and SYNOPSIS' hearts suddenly thumped. Is it so exaggerated? Zhu Yang subconsciously touched her arm. The development of the situation had exceeded her expectations. She had been busy taking care of Tommy these past few days and thought nothing big would happen down there. It's only been a few days. How could it develop like this? Chapter 855. You don't want your uncle to know about this, right? Zhang Yi said, "Take us over and have a look. Also, let everyone prepare their weapons. If the situation goes wrong, clear the place directly. Those who have been hungry for too long risk allowing themselves to be swallowed up by darkness once they begin to unleash their inner demons. Just like a wolf cub who has tasted blood, after going crazy, he will not recognize anyone." Zhang Yi is not afraid, but he doesn't need to take action personally to deal with ordinary people. Zhu Yang's face turned pale, and SYNOPSIS shrank back, not daring to move forward. But Zhang Yi was urging them from behind. "Come on, don't you like walking? Do you want to rest for a while before going over?" Zhu Yunk had no way out at this time, so he had no choice but to bite the bullet and said, "Just go. There's nothing to be afraid of." A group of people crossed the level of the rock flow group and walked towards the bottom cabin with loaded guns. When the people in the Yanliu group saw this scene, they couldn't help but start talking. "A lot of people are coming, all with guns. Oh, I don't know how many people died down there. I can smell the strong smell of blood. Too brutal." BMO and others were worried in the room, and everyone was trying to recall everything that had happened in the past. They hoped to find the secret that made Zhang Yi and others come to take them back, even though they were traveling across the ocean. Zhang Yi and the others arrived at the bottom cabin. At this time, the cabin door was still tightly locked with an iron lock, but the strong smell of blood could be smelt from a long distance away. Zhang Yi and the others have long been used to it, so they don't have any expressions yet. But Zhu Yunk and SYNOPSIS almost wanted to vomit. When they came to the tight iron door, they saw a stream of oozing black blood seeping out from the crack in the door, flowing all the way to Zhu Yunk's feet. What? Zhu Yunk's little face became even paler, and she couldn't help but scream and jump back. Her body began to tremble, and at this moment, she already realized that things were developing beyond her expectations. Zhang Yi said coldly, "Open the door." A crew member walked over with the key, opened the heavy iron lock, and then removed the iron chain in circles. All the crew members raised their guns expressionlessly and pointed them at the door. Crunch! The iron door was pushed open cautiously by 2 crew members, and a stronger smell of blood instantly hit their faces. Zhao Kenna was already prepared and covered her nose with a wet handkerchief. Zhu Yunk and SYNOPSIS closed their eyes tightly, not having the courage to look at the scene in the cabin. Zhang Yi will not let them go. "Aren't you very holy at first? Aren't you trying to save people, even though you don't have the ability? Come, take a good look at your masterpiece. Use your eyes to remember that this is the tragedy caused by your incompetent holy mother heart. Don't hide behind Miss Zhu. You are the person in charge here. I think you should appreciate it. You still have to make up your mind. Open your eyes." Zhang Yi scolded, and Zhu Yunk and SYNOPSIS were so frightened that they opened their eyes. Then they saw a sight they would never forget. In the long and narrow corridor, there was blood everywhere. The ground was covered with the bodies of refugees, blood spattered, and the walls and ceiling were covered with broken snowflakes. Some people's bodies had been smashed to pieces, and it was unclear what their faces looked like. Some people are still squirming on the ground, but they can only breathe in and have no air left. In such a sure field, there were actually several people, covered in blood, taking big mouthfuls of rice and stewed meat in front of the rice bucket, regardless of the blood on their hands. Now nearly half of the people in the entire bottom cabin were dead, and there was no one left to compete with them for food. They can eat to their fullest at every meal. When they found Zhu Yunk and others, they just glanced at them numbly and then showed a knowing smile. The spirits of these people have collapsed. Even if they were asked to die now, they would not feel anything. What? Zhu Yunk covered his head, suddenly fell into collapse, and screamed loudly. Obviously a few days ago, these people were alive and well, and they had a meeting together in the warehouse above. But now, many people have turned into cold corpses on the ground. Is it because of her? The more Zhu Yunk thought about it, the more he collapsed. If she hadn't insisted on going against Zhang Yi and secretly put the extra people on the boat, maybe none of this would have happened. If she pays more attention to her subordinates in the past few days and works hard to think of a way, she may be able to resolve their conflicts. Can Zhang Yi be blamed for this? She really wanted to blame Zhang Yi and put all the responsibility on Zhang Yi so that she could feel better inside. But it is easy for people to deceive others, but the most difficult thing is to deceive themselves. She knows. What does all this have to do with Zhang Yi? Zhang Yi was just a little colder, but she made all the decisions. It was her stubbornness and self-righteousness that killed these people. Vomit. Zhu Yunk bent over and vomited loudly. She felt extremely sick, so disgusting that she even hated herself. She quickly lost strength and fell to her knees, vomiting non-stop. She vomited out all the food she had eaten in the morning, and then vomited acidic water. As for SYNOPSIS, she was even more unbearable, because the moment she saw the sure hell, she fainted. Zhang Yi was completely unaware, and the crew members didn't feel much either. They just complained, "TMD, it's so dirty, I have to spend time cleaning it again. I won't do it. There are still people here who are not dead. Let them deal with it themselves." Zhao Ke was considered someone who had seen big scenes. He just frowned slightly and then regained his composure. She knelt down and gently patted Zhu Yang on the back. So there were only 2 people at the scene who were extremely embarrassed. Zhang Yi looked at Zhu Yang, who was kneeling on the ground and was vomiting, but he had no sympathy for her at all. He put his hands behind his back and sighed. "Oh, how could it become like this? Many people died. Miss Zhu, you don't need to be too sad. I can't blame you for this. They just don't have food to eat. They can starve to death. Why do they have to compete with others for food? Don't worry, I will explain this matter to Zhu Shui. I will never let him blame you for this matter." Zhu Yang felt even more uncomfortable after being told by Zhang Yi. When she heard that Zhang Yi was going to report to Zhu Zeng, she really panicked. With Zhu Zeng's character, if he knew that she had done such a stupid thing, he would definitely be extremely disappointed in her. When the time comes, if she loses this uncle's favor, her status in the Zhu family will plummet, let alone being promoted to the center. Zhang Yi, ugh, please don't tell my uncle about this. In desperation, she forgot about their agreement and went directly to grab Zhang Yi's trouser leg, her eyes full of pleading. The corner of Zhang Yi's mouth curled into a sneer. "Oh, this matter, aren't you making things difficult for me? Zhu Shui is also my nominal leader after all. I went to sea to perform a mission under his order. If I don't tell him about such a big thing, wouldn't it make it difficult for me to do it? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 856. Everything that happened in the cabin on the bottom floor completely shattered Zhu Yang's worthless self-confidence. What Zhu Zeng said when Zhang Yi Tathagata came helped Zhu Yang realize the cruelty of the last days. He looked at the bloody cabin in front of him and was a little surprised. He knew there would be a brutal fight here, but he didn't expect it to be so tragic. "Don't worry, I'm not bored enough to report to the leader. I won't tell Zhu Shui about this." He leaned over and looked at Zhu Yang with a smile. "This is a little secret between the 2 of us." Zhu Yang's heart thumped. She seemed to hear the subtext of Zhang Yi's words. "I will keep your secret for the rest of my life." But now she has no choice. Who let this be the consequence of her own doing? Zhang Yi didn't go inside to check. There was blood on the floor, and he didn't want to get it all over himself. Ms. Zhu will handle any subsequent issues personally, Zhang Yi said lazily. He and Zhao Ke left here, not intending to get involved in the slightest. Let Zhu Yang take a closer look at what human nature is in the apocalypse, so that she can have less worthless pity and sympathy in the future. Lao Shan thought to himself, no wonder Mr. Zhang asked us to prepare cleaning tools in advance. It turned out to be for this purpose. He glanced at Zhu Yang, who was kneeling on the ground, already limp and unable to get up. "Miss Zhu, do you want to go in and take a look?" Zhu Yang shook his head repeatedly. No, I won't go and see it. But Mr. Zhang said that the issue here is still waiting for you to make up your mind. He lowered his voice and asked, there are still many people alive in the cabin. Although they are survivors, they must have participated in the murder. What do you think of how to deal with them? Do you want to? He gestured with his hand on his neck. As long as Zhu Yang speaks at this time, he will report to Zhang Yi without hesitation. After all, there are still so many living people, and they will all be precious resources, to be brought back to Xianhai City to work as laborers. It would be a pity to kill them casually. The reason why Lao Shan said this was because he knew that Zhu Yang did not have such courage, and was just teasing her deliberately. Zhu Yang shook his head violently. No, don't kill them. They must have some last resort reasons. As she was talking, she suddenly burst into tears and covered her face, tears flowing down her fingers. Seeing Zhu Yunk's appearance, everyone had expressions of disdain and impatience on their faces. It was obviously the path you chose, but as a result, things turned out like this, and all you could do was cry here and pretend to be pitiful. Every survivor in Cheyenne City has gone through many life and death tests, and their hearts are harder than iron. I can't get used to Zhu Yunk's weak and incompetent behavior. Lao Shan asked Zhu Yunk a few more questions, but received no reply from her, only making her cry louder. This kind of arrogant and self-righteous woman will only choose to cry to avoid responsibility when she encounters problems. If it weren't for her status, Lao Shan would have cursed her a long time ago. But her appearance makes people feel helpless. There was no other way, so Lao Shan had to go to Zhang Yi and ask Zhang Yi for instructions on what to do. Hearing that Zhu Yunk would just collapse and cry, Zhang Yi rubbed his forehead. She is more fragile than I thought. I also thought that after this blow, she would become more mature. Zhao Ke laughed on the side and said, I think she must have grown up. It's just that for a girl like her to go through such a huge change for the first time, it is already remarkable that she cannot go insane. You seem to have stimulated her a little too much. Zhang Yi looked at her. Is it big? Why do I think it's not enough? When Zhao Ke first submitted his certificate, what he did was much more terrifying than what Zhu Yunk had seen. Zhao Ke said helplessly, you forgot, I'm a clinician and I often deal with corpses. Zhang Yi suddenly realized, oh, that's true. Putting this thing off all the time is not an option. After all, there are so many corpses down there, and it would be too unpleasant to put them in the cabin. Over time, the entire ship will smell of corpses. How will it affect the quality of life? Zhang Yi said to Lao Shan, check how many people are still alive. The people from Huaxi Kingdom will stay and be taken back to Cheyenne City. The foreigners will be thrown directly into the sea. Zhu Yunk, don't let her go, just leave her there and let her take a good look at her so that she can remember her for a long time. Lao Shan asked with a smile. The viciousness of those people has been aroused now, and it may be a disaster to keep them. Zhang Yi said, when people are in desperate situations, sometimes they have to make some choices in order to survive. He looked at Lao Shan. Don't you have less blood on your hands? Lao Shan smiled awkwardly. Which one of them on the ship doesn't have 2 or 3 digits of lives on their hands? Let's do this for now and pay more attention to their situation later. If we find anyone with evil intentions, we'll kill them again. After all, in the last days, population is also a very precious resource. Just keep them if you can. In fact, Zhang Yi's surveillance was everywhere on the entire ship. Zhang Yi knew better than anyone what happened in the cabin below. He even admired a few people in Ludahe. Courageous and ruthless. If you take them back to Cheyenne City, they might become useful people in the future. Lao Shan took the people down. Of course they don't clean the dirty cabin themselves. The smell inside was terrible, and it wasn't just the smell of blood. When a person is dying, feces and urine flow freely, and various yellow and white things are mixed with thick black blood. Anyone who smells it will be confused. They had to put on masks and rubber coats to go in and call out those who were still alive first. As for Zhu Yunk, she thought that she would be completely embarrassed and run away quickly. But Lao Shan said, you are in charge. If you leave, we won't know what to do. So we have to ask you to stay and direct our work. Zhu Yunk wanted to refuse, but Lao Shan didn't give her a chance. He brought her a chair and invited her to rest. If Zhu Yunk insists on leaving at this time, he will really lose his last bit of face. She had no choice but to ask someone to wake Su Nuangxi up first. That's right, instead of sending Su Nuangxi back after she fainted, she woke her up. Best friends walk together throughout their lives. Although they cannot share joys and sorrows, they must share hardships. This problem was easy to solve. He stuffed the cold gun butt into her neck and woke her up from the cold. Su Nuangxi opened her eyes with excitement. Who am I? Where am I? Zhu Yunk didn't care about her state and pulled her to his side to help him be brave. Su Nuangxi came to her senses and was so frightened that her face turned green. At the same time, she secretly blamed Zhu Yunk for dragging her into the water. But at this time, Zhu Yunk naturally couldn't let her go. Chapter 857 The Restless Heart. +1. Laoshan asked people to clear out all the living people. According to what Zhang Yi said, all the Huaxu citizens stayed. As for the stowaways, it was natural to help them ascend to heaven. There was a battle, and there were countless casualties in the entire bottom cabin. There are 75 people still alive. 28 of them were seriously injured, and the others were slightly injured. Lao Shan thought of Zhang Yi's instructions and asked people to gather these injured people into a dry warehouse and wait for Zhang Yi to speak. Whether to throw it away or treat it will be decided later. As for the stowaways, forget them if they are dead and just do some last-ditch damage to those who are not dead. Then he called the Huaxu people who were slightly injured and asked them to serve as laborers. They threw the dead bodies into the sea and cleaned the entire cabin. Even though these people are very tired, they still have to do a lot of labor. But their hearts have never been more relaxed, because many people died in the cabin. From now on, they no longer need to worry about insufficient food. As a result, the cabin on the bottom floor began to buzz with activity. There was an endless stream of people carrying the injured, carrying corpses, and cleaning the cabin. These people all have to pass through the middle cabin, which is where the members of the rock flow group live. The people in the Yanliu group were treated fairly well. Compared with the people in the bottom cabin, they still have a certain degree of freedom. For example, the door is open during the day, and after permission, you can go to the deck to breathe. This was mainly a back door opened by Zhang Yi to Li Zhangyu to show his friendliness. At this time, so many people began to carry out the wounded and corpses in large numbers. The blood flowed endlessly along the way. Such a scene was seen by many people in the Yanliu group. They were already uneasy, fearing that they would be implicated in this matter. Now seeing a large number of dead bodies in the bottom cabin, and the crew members all wearing rubber coats and holding guns in their hands, some people were frightened and suspected that Zhang Yi had people start cleaning the bottom cabin. Once the seeds of doubt are planted, they begin to take root quickly. After people's exaggeration and wanton speculation, it will become out of control. Soon, nervous and frightening discussions began in the multiple cabins of the entire Rockflow group. Many people died, at least 70 or 80. It's possible that everyone in the bottom cabin is dead. My god, why is this happening? Maybe it's because they are fighting for food. They have had this conflict for a long time. Who can stand being hungry every day? But there shouldn't be so many people dying, right? Could it be the purging of those people above? They have no intention of bringing so many people back. Then will we end up like them? Panic began to fill the air. BMO huddled in the corner, his lips trembling with fear. I'm a foreigner. I will definitely die. He will not let me go. He had long been scared out of his wits. Zi Yunfen frowned and said silently, actually, I'm from Huaxu country. I think I should talk to him. She Haicheng scolded sarcastically. Azuma, now you are from Huaxu country again. Didn't you always mock Huaxu country before, saying that everything about that place is bad? If you dare to abandon us, be careful I tell them everything you have said during this time. Then I will throw you into the sea and feed it to the sharks. Zi Yunfen's face changed drastically. He jumped out of bed angrily and grabbed She Haicheng's collar. You damn scum. If you dare to report me, I will tell you that you have been scolding that man named Zhang every day. Let's die together. Rudolph, the big and powerful pickpocket, laughed loudly and clapped his hands to applaud them. Report it together. No one will live. In the cabin, Engineer Eisenman, who had always been the calmest and silent engineer, couldn't help it. What's the point of doing this? It's meaningless. The most important thing now is to think about how to ensure that you can survive successfully. BMO looked at Eisenman. Eisenman, is there anything you can do? Eisenman looked hesitant and fell silent. Seeing this, other people looked at him. They always felt that this engineer was extraordinary. He is very smart and a genius in the computer field. It is said that at the age of 21, he joined Colombia's largest company, Jugo Company, as a software engineer. She Haicheng and Zi Yunfen were panting from the fight, and they let go of their hands in a tacit understanding. Zi Yunfen adjusted his tie and asked, Eisenman, what exactly are you thinking about? Tell us quickly. Everyone wants to live. We are a group, right? Eisenman glanced at him and asked slowly, aren't you from Huaxu country now? Zi Yunfen smiled disapprovingly and said, "My nationality is like Scrudina's cat. I can change it at any time when needed." The people around him looked at him with disdain, but She Cheng laughed loudly. "I saw you right. You are indeed a genuine scumbag." Zi Yunfen sneered. To each other, Eisenman remained silent. Others asked again and again, "If you have anything to say, just say it. We can swear that we will never leak it." Eisenman sneered. He didn't believe anyone. He was especially worried about Che Cheng, the two-faced scum who often reported on the people around him. Che Cheng also knew that Eisenman was suspicious of him. He walked over, glanced at everyone in the room, and then coughed. "I think it's better for us not to fight among ourselves now. After all, the man named Zhang has never regarded us as one of his own. He can take our lives anytime he needs to. Now, we can only rely on ourselves." She Chen wanted to be Zhang Yi's licking dog, or even an undercover agent. As long as he could survive, he would give everything he had. Whether it's reporting the members of the Rockflow group around him, or offering his still somewhat pretty wife. As long as it keeps him alive, there's nothing he can't do. However, Zhang Yi didn't give him any response, which made She Cheng feel uneasy. "Let's do this. In order to show solidarity, each of us will curse Zhang here. In this way, everyone will have no way out. How about it?" She Cheng still has an idea. At this time, anyone who dares to insult the captain of this ship will definitely be severely punished or even executed. This is the name-dropping certificate, which prevents each other from betraying each other. When everyone heard this proposal, they all thought it was feasible. Moreover, they were not from the Huaxu Kingdom, and most of them were originally opposed to going to the Huaxu Kingdom with Li Zhangyu. After everyone discussed it, they held a ceremony to scold Zhang Yi on the spot to express their determination. Chapter 858 Suspicion. Everyone handed in a letter of declaration and stated that they would not inform Zhang Yi. She Cheng asked Eisenman, "Mr. Eisenman, can you tell me now, what have you discovered?" Eisenman crossed his arms and said very coldly, "Actually, it's not too complicated. It's just that you were all about to starve to death. So you didn't have the time to care about other things. In our third month on the island, there was a time when we couldn't find any food and everyone huddled in the camp all day long waiting to die. As a result, many people shared their innermost secrets and shared interesting things. At that time, Li Zhangyu once told how he obtained that special power. These words immediately made everyone fall into memories. But at that time, most people didn't have much energy to listen to the interesting stories Li Zhangyu Qiang told. Not everyone remembers it clearly. He once got a yellow stone somewhere on Star Island, and that stone gave him special powers. If you think about it carefully, what is the biggest difference between Li Zhangyu and us? It is the power he possesses. So I suspect that that power is the true purpose of the force to which the owner of this ship belongs. These words were like an enlightenment, making everyone suddenly realize the crux of the problem. That is to say, except for Li Zhangyu, others have no value to them at all, right? The captain doesn't care about our life or death at all. Maybe when the ship reaches the middle of the ocean, he will throw us all overboard if he is unhappy. Everyone has realized that this is the explanation closest to the truth. However, even after figuring out the truth, they couldn't leave the ship. Surrounded by a vast sea of ice, leaving here means death, and they have no way to escape. Then we still have to wait to die. Who knows, that guy will go crazy one day and kill us all. Bayemo covered his head and said in pain. She Cheng and others looked gloomy, and after knowing the truth, they felt even more desperate. Because they have been with Li Zhangyu for half a year, Zhang Yi will definitely not let them leave. Even if they go to Huaxu country, they will definitely be put under house arrest. By then, they are all strangers, and will definitely become slaves. Whether he lives or dies, it really depends on the mood of the owner. Thinking about this ending makes their hair stand on end. What should we do? Do we have to face his sad ending? She Cheng said with difficulty. Zi Yunfen regretted a little now. He shouldn't have gotten involved with this group of people just now. He could rely on his bloodline from Huaxu Kingdom to lick Zhang Yi and treat him as his dog. Even after landing, life will be slightly better. Now, there is no going back. The pickpocket Rudolph was very open-minded and laughed in bed. He's going to die anyway. Hey, that old guy, why don't you ask your wife to come over and stay with me? She Cheng was in no mood to pay attention to him. BMO was talking to himself in fear, his face full of panic. Only Eisenman still looked expressionless. He is such a person, he seems to have no interest in anything. Perhaps because the end of the world is approaching, he has long realized that, if he wants to survive, he will inevitably encounter this kind of encounter. Mr. Eisenman, since you have thought of this a long time ago, there must be a way to solve the problem, right? Eisenman glanced at him and said, there is no way. It will definitely happen. You will definitely find a way, Mr. Eisenman. She Cheng suddenly grabbed Eisenman's arm and shook it so hard that his eyes turned red. No matter how great the hope is, as long as there is a possible way, we must try it. Eisenman was a little annoyed by She Cheng, or maybe he really didn't want to be a dog in a foreign country. He stared at She Cheng and said impatiently, if you can get me a communication device, then maybe we can still get out of here. He briefly stated his thoughts. Going from Yanliu Island to Huaxu Kingdom, you will pass through the waters of Neon Kingdom. Nearby, the Colombian Ocean Fleet was stationed and patrolling. So if you can get a communication device and then modify it through Eisenman's hands, you may have a chance to contact them. You mean, we pass this information to the Ocean Fleet and let them rescue us? Zi Yunfan's eyes slowly lit up. BMO said sadly, it's useless, those guys are just a bunch of shit. I have sent them countless distress signals, but they simply ignore our existence. After hearing this, Eisenman said calmly, but the situation is different now. I think the Ocean Fleet will also be interested in something that can make the people of Huaxu Kingdom move. BMO was stunned for a moment when he heard this, then slowly raised his head and looked at him. The other people in the room looked at each other, their eyes gradually becoming gleaming with excitement. This is indeed a method you can try. That's all I can tell you. But our communication equipment has been confiscated a long time ago. Where can you get it? Even if he can steal it, if someone discovers it, I believe he may face the risk of the death penalty. After Eisenman finished speaking, he lay on the bed and stopped talking. He is smart and can think of ways, but he is not an executioner. But his method at least gave everyone a hope. There will be a way, there will be a way, She Cheng murmured. On the other side of the Yanliu group, there is another room, which is the room where Li Zhangyi, Zhang Yi and Ma Wenzheng are. They were also completely shocked by the killings in the lower cabin. The bodies were carried out one after another. The method of disposal is also very simple, that is, throwing it directly into the sea from the deck. People in the cabin could hear the pop and pop sounds like dumplings being dropped. This can't help but make people feel a little frightened, because the sound almost kept ringing from the beginning to the end. From this you can imagine how many people died. There were also some students in the cabin, all junior high school students, not very old. They followed Li Zhangyi to Ganliu Island for a break from school. Seeing this scene at this time, they huddled together in fear, their faces bloodless. Zhang Yi also had a worried look on her face, and murmured in a low voice, it's too scary, all of this is simply too scary. Marvin, who was on the bed opposite, smiled faintly when he heard the words. Although he was a little shocked by the scene outside the window, he didn't look too excited. This kind of situation is something that can happen. It's just that I didn't expect, he took a deep breath, that so many people would die. I thought that Mr. Zhang would take care of it. Chapter 859 Out. Li Zhangyi leaned against the iron frame of the bed, folding his arms with a worried look on his face. What happened on the ship made him very uneasy. I have to talk to Mr. Zhang. Zhang Yi held his arm, her eyes filled with worry. Don't piss him off. Don't get too excited. We still need to rely on him to survive now. She was worried that Li Zhangyi would do something stupid. After all, her husband is a man with a very sense of justice. Li Zhangyi said, don't worry, I know it in my heart. At least I need to know whether he is killing innocent people indiscriminately. Marvin was looking at him and said, I don't think you need to worry too much about this. Li Zhangyi and Zhang Yi looked at Ma Wenzheng. They still respect this entrepreneur very much, and his character and wisdom have been recognized by everyone on Yanliu Island. Mr. Ma, what do you think of this matter? Ma Wenzheng said unhurriedly, as the saying goes, in troubled times, the most important thing is to use caution. But the biggest contradiction on the ship now is actually concentrated in the bottom cabin. I think Mr. Zhang's approach is understandable. It is a bit cruel. It is up to them to resolve it internally. But, he is not a murderous person. Marvin was thinking about everything that had happened that day. Through the conversation between Zhu Yung and Zhang Yi, he could vaguely understand the unfolding of the matter. Maybe it has something to do with their internal conflicts. Li Zhangyu thought about this and thought that what Ma Wenzheng said made sense. But you have to confirm it yourself before you can rest assured. Because all of their lives depend on Zhang Yi. So Li Zhangyu planned to go up there to talk to Zhang Yi. The people on the boat were relatively polite to Li Zhangyu. This was Zhang Yi's order, which gave Li Zhangyu a certain degree of freedom. Li Zhangyu just told the patrol crew that he wanted to see Zhang Yi, and someone immediately reported to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi was not surprised at all when he heard the report. He knew that everyone in the Yanliu group was scared to death. Although he didn't have any thoughts about the rock flow group, he still needed to be reassured in order to avoid any trouble in the future. So Zhang Yi asked someone to bring Li Zhangyu to him. When Li Zhangyu met Zhang Yi, he was careful and polite. After a few official greetings, he pretended to ask, "Something seems to have happened in the cabin below today. Can I take the liberty to ask what happened? Don't think too much about it. We big guys are scared when we see so many people dead. First of all, I absolutely trust you personally and firmly support the organization's decision. I just want to understand what happened so that I can give everyone an explanation and make them feel more at ease." Li Zhangyu's cautious look made Zhang Yi feel familiar. But this is also where he admires Li Zhangyu. If this man hadn't been so cautious, it would have been difficult for him to survive on Yanliu Island for half a year with so many people in the Yanliu group. He explained calmly, "It's nothing. It was because of the shortage of food that they started killing each other." He looked at Li Zhangyu, raised his eyebrows slightly, and asked with a half smile, "Do you think it was me who ordered people to clean the cabin on the bottom floor?" Li Zhangyu's expression was a little embarrassed. He waved his hands and said with a smile, "No, no, no, how could we have such an idea?" However, Zhang Yi's explanation still made him feel relieved. Judging based on what happened before, Li Zhangyu felt that what Zhang Yi said was basically true. With their abilities, if they wanted to destroy those people, there was no need to wait until now. Zhang Yi came over and patted him on the shoulder. "Don't think blindly all day. I will take you back to your homeland safely. But the premise is that you must cooperate with my work." He stretched out his index finger and waved it in front of Li Zhangyu's eyes. "When I get back, I'll comfort them. I don't want unnecessary emotions to spread on the ship." Li Zhangyu swallowed secretly and nodded in agreement. While the two were talking, someone passed by carrying a body. Li Zhangyu suddenly heard a faint cry for help. "Help me." He subconsciously looked to the side and saw two people in the bottom cabin carrying a man covered in blood and leaning against the railing. Seeing that the man was still alive, the two people carrying him looked disgusted. "MD, you're not even dead. Come on. 1, 2, 3, let's go." However, the two of them had no intention of rescuing him. They just pretended not to hear anything. In front of Zhang Yi and Li Zhangyu, they made a few preparatory moves and threw him into the vast sea of ice. Zhang Yi glanced at the stunned Li Zhangyu and explained calmly, "He is the culprit who caused this riot." "Damn it, don't you think so?" Li Zhangyu nodded quickly. Yes, damn, he deserves to die." But the man's face was covered in blood, and Zhang Yi didn't even look at him. Why did he decide that he was the culprit of the riot? Maybe that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that he is dead. Li Zhangyu returned to the cabin. After thinking about it, he still followed what Zhang Yi said and called everyone in the Yanliu group together. Everyone's faces were full of anxiety, fearing that they would be the next person to be killed. Someone immediately asked Li Zhangyu a question. "Teacher Li, is there a massacre down there? Why are so many people dead? I can still smell blood now. It's so scary. I won't be able to sleep soundly at night from now on when I think of so many dead souls under my feet." Shut up. Stop talking. She Haicheng came out, stared at Li Zhang Yi and said, Teacher Li, you found me. Now that something like this happened, should you give everyone an explanation? Li Zhang Yi explained, I have already asked Mr. Zhang. The following things have nothing to do with them. It is because someone came here smuggled in and there was not enough food. Therefore, the violence occurred. Everyone has seen this kind of situation on Yanliu Island, so don't worry too much. Mr. Zhang promised me that he would take them to the other side successfully. You should stop thinking wildly, and you should keep your mouth shut, and don't talk nonsense. If the people above hear you, it will cause conflicts, which will not be good for everyone. At this time, the pale Bayemo was wrapped in a blanket, and questioned with a trembling voice. Of course he said that. But who can guarantee that what he said is true? Li Zhang took a deep breath as he listened to the nagging doubts in his ears. We have no other choice but to trust him now. Instead of causing more troubles, it is better to believe first and then question. Chapter 860 The Self-Rescue Plan of the Rockflow Group. Li Zhang's speech failed to dispel everyone's doubts, but it did make their nervousness dissipate a bit. Everyone returned to their rooms. As soon as Bayemo returned to the room, he huddled on the bed and muttered to himself, liars, they are all liars. They will definitely kill us. They will. Zi Yunfen was sitting on the white ink bed on the lower bunk. The gold-rimmed glasses with one corner of the lens broken reflected a sinister light. We have to find a way to save ourselves. I don't want to live such a precarious life. Li Zhang has probably become an accomplice of Zhang. He has the value of living for Zhang, but we don't. I will not put my life on the kindness of others. To shut up. She Haicheng suddenly cursed and stared at Zi Yunfen sternly. He cautiously walked over and took a look outside the door, then locked the door from the inside, then walked over and gave everyone a stern warning. If anyone else hears this, you will kill us all. Zi Yunfen realized that he was a little excited when he spoke, but did not refute. Then what do you say? She Haicheng lowered his voice and glanced at everyone. All of us here are geniuses in their respective fields. I think as long as we work together, we will definitely be able to find a way to break the situation. Now, please abandon all distracting thoughts and think about this issue carefully. His voice became even deeper as he said, we'll talk again in the evening. The lights in the middle cabin were turned off at night, and Easeman checked that there was no monitoring equipment in the room. At this time, detailed discussion is the safest approach. Everyone also recognized She Haicheng's sophistication and went back, silently thinking about how to contact the Colombian Ocean Fleet thousands of miles away on the vast sea. Zhang Yi didn't feel much about so many people dying in the bottom cabin. On the contrary, the number of people is smaller, and it will be easier to manage in the future. He will only take into account the feelings of his compatriots, and at least from now on, he will provide guarantee for everyone's daily necessities. In fact, he had witnessed this chaos from the beginning. He knew better than anyone else what was happening in the lower cabin. As for Lu Dahei, Zhang Yi, Yu Gang and others who caused this chaos, Zhang Yi does not intend to hold them accountable. In one day, the bottom cabin was almost cleaned. However, there was too much blood, and it could not be completely removed. Even after scrubbing it dozens of times, there was still a faint smell of blood and traces of blood. But for the survivors in the bottom cabin, they felt that it was no longer dark and damp, but became brighter and warmer. As for Zhu Yunk and Sunuangsi, one was so frightened that he could not speak clearly, fainted several times, and was completely limp. The other one was deeply shocked and made Zhang Yi feel weak. From now on, he may not dare to act opposite Zhang Yi. This made Zhang Yi feel very good. Next, if there are no accidents on the Jinfeng, it should stabilize and then return to the Jiangnan region. Even if there are some small waves on the road, it won't cause much trouble. However, the ideal is too full, and the reality is often extremely skinny. Zhang Yi believes that everyone still alive on the ship is well fed and well fed. Especially the people in the Yanliu group have not suffered any injustice so far, and their food and warmth are guaranteed. They are much happier than the people fighting in the bottom cabin. Therefore, everyone will stay calmly and there is no reason to want to fight against themselves. But the human heart is often elusive. Using absolutely rational thinking to analyze may not necessarily lead to the best answer. For example, People like Cheng and BMO. They initially asked the Colombian Navy for help, but received no response. Zhang Yi took them on board the ship and gave them food and a warm living environment, but they were always afraid and suspicious and never believed in Zhang Yi. That night, there was a rare thunder outside, which was a sign of the coming blizzard. Except for Zhang Yi in the crew's room, as well as the working cabin, the lights in other places were basically turned off. On the side of Yan Liu group, Cheng and others opened their eyes and got up from the bed one by one. They came to Eisenman's bed, and the cautious Cheng picked up the sheet and blocked the gap in the cabin door to prevent anyone from eavesdropping. After preparations were completed, a group of people gathered together and began to discuss a plan to escape from the Jinfeng. Everyone, after thinking about it for a day, I wonder what clever ideas you have come up with. Cheng was the first to ask. Eisenman crossed his arms and remained as silent as before. The methods he can provide have been mentioned before, but the specific implementation level is beyond what he, a computer engineer, can do. Pickpocket Rudolph said, if you want to obtain communication equipment, the only way is to steal it from the crew. This is not a problem for me. I can definitely steal the communication equipment without letting them find out. But, this is on a boat. He shrugged helplessly. I think he will soon find that the communicator is missing, and I can't slip away as quickly as I did on the Champs-Élysées. Eisenman rubbed his fingers and said, if I want to use communication equipment to contact Colombia's ocean fleet, I need at least half an hour to operate. You have to buy this time for me. Zi Yunfen pushed up his glasses. In other words, not only do we have to steal the communicator back, but we also have to prevent the other party from discovering it within half an hour. Eisenman reminded him, and the communicator must be returned in time, and it must not attract their attention. Cheng frowned. Then we need to find a way to delay the stay for more than 10 minutes, right? Eisenman nodded. Theoretically, that's the case. BMO shook his head. This is simply impossible. Our daily contact with the crew members is always during meals, when someone brings food to them. But they hardly stay here and don't want to have much contact with us. They will leave after delivering the food. Even if we steal the communicator, how to return it is another problem. A group of people frowned and thought hard. There is hope for things, but that doesn't mean it's feasible in practice. Everyone knows that it is more difficult to put a crew member on the Jinfeng into a state of downtime for 10 minutes than to reach the sky. They are too cautious and don't have much favorable impressions of the people in the Yanliu group, especially foreigners like them. Boom. A blast of thunder pierced the night sky outside the window and crashed into the sea from the sky. The cold and huge ocean reflected in it was even more mysterious and terrifying. Cheng suddenly raised his head and said to everyone seriously, I have thought of a way. Chapter 861 Stealing the Communicator. Cheng's words successfully focused everyone's attention on him. Mr. Shen, what do you have in mind? Zi Yunfen asked eagerly. Rudolph also asked curiously, do you have a way to prevent them from discovering that the communicator was stolen within 10 minutes? Cheng chuckled and said, I have a way. Although it is a bit risky, it is worth a try. As the saying goes, wealth can be found in danger. BMO said, don't whet our appetites. Tell us what you plan to do. Cheng slowly expressed his idea. This matter requires another person's help. It was none other than Cha Hee-sung's wife Kim Mi. Mentioning Jin Kim-mi, Rudolph and others had strange lights in their eyes. The former member of the Scylla girl group can be said to have nothing but beauty and coquettishness. When he was on Yanliu Island, Cheng used her to exchange for a lot of daily necessities. It can even be said that even when Cheng went out to pee, she would meet 10 old customers who had done business with her. Kim Mi is a woman with a low IQ. After marrying Cha Hee-sung, she has been living the life of a rich wife. Even at the end of the world, she had no personal opinion and always followed Cheng's orders. She would listen to whatever Cheng asked her to do, except to tell her to die. As for after boarding the ship, Jin Kimi also had some incidents with the people on the ship. Especially the crew members. They are all her patrons. Cheng doesn't mind cuckolding himself. As a shrewd Scylla politician, he has no etiquette or shame at all. As long as he can maximize his own interests, he will not blink an eye, even if the whole ship of men cuckolds him. we can find a good opportunity. Laozi in the kitchen is a pervert, and he and my wife haven't been together for a day or two. When he comes to deliver food next time, I will ask Kim Kim to seduce him. At that time, she will be responsible for the delaying task, and you must seize the time to complete our plan. Everyone was very moved when they heard that Cha Hae-cheng was so dedicated. Rudolph even said, "Mr. Shen, since you are so generous and dedicated your wife, then you might as well let me." Cha Hae-cheng sneered, "As long as you work hard, I can let her accompany you." Rudolph was very happy. "Don't worry, this is just a small problem for me." Zi Yunfen raised questions. "This method is indeed very good, but the question is 4 or 10 minutes too long? Can that cook do it?" Cha Hae-cheng is full of confidence in this. "Don't forget, my wife is a professional. When we were still in Silla, she was the famous god of war." Everyone couldn't help but laugh. To be able to say it with such pride after being cuckolded, there is probably no one else besides Cha Hae-cheng. Cha Hae-cheng didn't take it seriously at all, because that's how I met her in the first place, so I know it very well. The members of the so-called girl group are just the playthings of certain people. Cha Hae-cheng married her to facilitate his career. Anyway, when she gets old and loses her beauty, the last sum of money will be spent. Several people completed the division of tasks. Cha Hae-cheng's wife Kim Kim is responsible for seducing Zi Changming. Then pickpocket Rudolph takes the opportunity to steal his communication device. Then leave it to Eisenman to operate and contact Columbia's ocean fleet. Others are responsible for providing ventilation to avoid accidents. Once an unexpected situation occurs, they will pretend that Zi Changming accidentally dropped the communicator to the ground, and they will return it. However, Zi Changming's attention was all on Jinjimai at the time, so he might not have noticed this. However, if they fail this time, it may make Zi Changming wary, and it will be extremely difficult to repeat the same trick next time. Therefore, they don't have many opportunities, maybe only once. The weather on the sea suddenly started to get worse. Zhang Yi and the others had been out to sea for 2 or 3 months, and this was the first time they encountered such bad weather. The storm blew mercilessly on the sea, whistling like a monster. Wave after wave rolled in, and the waves undulated like mountains. The huge Jinfeng was like a small boat in the huge waves, as if it would be overturned at any time. Many people on board were frightened, and some had begun to pray to God. In ZHU Young's room, Tommy was crying loudly, restless because of fear, and couldn't stop no matter what. ZHU Young and Su Nuangxi, on the other hand, held onto the legs of the bed to prevent themselves from being thrown out. When they heard the annoying crying in their ears, their eyes no longer had the usual charity. Instead, he stared at the crying baby with some disgust. "It really annoys me," ZHU Young said secretly in his heart. "If I had known better, I shouldn't have brought you on board in the first place." One thing she never dared to mention was that several times, she even had the urge to throw him into the sea. Zhang Yi felt a little uncomfortable. Although he was not seasick, such violent shaking made him feel uneasy. Fortunately, the furniture and other items in the cabin are fixed, so there is no need to worry about hurting anyone. "Kenna, please stay here for a while. I'll go to the control room and take a look." Zhang Yi was a little worried. He didn't know why, but he always had a subtle premonition in his heart. There must be something hidden in the depths of the sea, spying on the Jinfeng in the dark, spying on him. Zhang Yi could not forget the look in Findragon's leaving eyes before he was seriously injured by him, like a vicious human being. So on the way back, he went to the control room to check every day and ordered the crew to pay attention to the sonar and radar. If you notice anything unusual, you must report it to him immediately. Zhang Yi shuttled through space and arrived in the control room in an instant. Things are slightly better here. The crew had seen such strong winds and waves many times. There was not much fear on their faces, and they were even in the mood to chat. After all, judging from the tonnage and mass of the Jinfeng, it can completely withstand a storm of this magnitude. For Zhang Yi, looking at the vast and terrifying scene outside through the window glass, the shock in his heart was indescribable. It won't capsize, will it? Zhang Yi couldn't help but ask this question. The ship suddenly became quiet, and all the crew members looked at him with extremely strange eyes. Lao Shan came over and said to Zhang Yi, "Mr. Zhang, you can't say that word on the boat." It's too unlucky. Which word? Lao Shan said. Budun. Zhang Yi smiled and said, there is still such a taboo. Lao Shan said, don't worry, with us here, and with this world-class Jinfeng, we won't be afraid of winds and waves of this magnitude. Zhang Yi nodded. This is the benefit of having an experienced sailor. He knows how to deal with danger. But suddenly, a long and distant sound suddenly came from Zhang Yi's ears. The sound was very strange, distant, and long, as if it came from across endless years, but it gave people goosebumps all over their bodies. Zhang Yi's brows suddenly furrowed like a sharp sword, filled with murderous intent. That guy is here. I knew it was there. At the same time, the sonar operator also issued a warning to Zhang Yi. Mr. Zhang, a sea monster has appeared. A huge object is approaching us rapidly from the depths of the seabed. Chapter 862 The Fin Dragon attacks. The Fin Dragon is coming. It's finally here. Zhang Yi waited for it for more than half a month, knowing that such a day would definitely come. The overlord of the sea will not tolerate being injured without fighting back. Because the world of the ocean itself is dominated by the weak and the strong, which is more cruel than the human world. Zhang Yi's eyes slowly opened. He had already prepared for this day. The Jinfeng shook violently. The surrounding seawater began to surge wildly, and the waves were already more than 10 meters high than the hull of the ship. Looking around, there was actually a circular wave surrounding the entire Jinfeng. Oops, the hull is out of control. A crew member suddenly shouted. The Jinfeng was shaking violently, and was difficult to control, like a small boat being played with by the waves at will. This was an experience they had never had before after going to sea, and everyone felt a little uneasy in their hearts. Zhang Yi was not in a hurry at this time, and had already expertly put on the captain-level combat uniform specially created for him by Deng's technology. In order to go to sea this time, an additional function of compressed oxygen has been added, so that even if it accidentally falls into the ocean, it will not be drowned. However, such a situation should be avoided as much as possible. After all, the ocean is not Zhang Yi's home court. It's that thing causing trouble down there. Don't panic. I'll deal with it. You guys hold the ship steady. Zhang Yi's power blessed the entire Jinfeng, causing it to break away from the water and not be affected by waves and storms. Soon the Jinfeng was suspended in midair and stabilized. Zhang Yi flew into the air and looked down at everything under his feet. Viewed from a high altitude, the scene in front of you is indeed extremely shocking. The giant fin dragon was over 100 meters long. It showed a long body in the dark and deep water. Hundreds of sharp and rough black dorsal fins on its back cut through the waves and swam quickly in the water. It was it that created the huge vortex, which affected the operation of the Jinfeng. But this time, it did not take the initiative to attack the Jinfeng. Perhaps the last experience taught it a lesson and made it realize that it was not safe to directly attack the hull. Therefore, using the power of the ocean to overturn the ship is its best choice. Zhang Yi looked down at it from a high position. It also felt the amazing pressure and raised its head to look at the sky. The huge eyes are ice blue, and its eyeballs are much bigger than Zhang Yi. But when it looked at this tiny human being in front of it, in addition to deep hatred, there was also strong fear in its eyes. In the first fight, if it weren't for the cover of the sea, it might have been seriously injured and would have been cut into 2 pieces by Zhang Yi. But this time, it obviously recovered from its injuries. Squeak. It suddenly opened its mouth and let out a sharp roar, and then the huge tentacles suddenly shot out a purple-white beam of light, hitting Zhang Yi in the air. The ability of Time Echo allowed Zhang Yi to predict the trajectory of its attack in advance. So before it took action, Zhang Yi dodged in advance in the air and avoided the attack. It's my turn. He pulled out the holy seal with his right hand, and the black void fire filled the blade. The fin dragon understood how powerful this power was, and quickly submerged into the deep sea with a flick of its tail, escaping as fast as it could. But it didn't escape, it just used the seawater to hide its body, and prevent Zhang Yi from attacking it. A moment later, a huge wave broke out under the Jinfeng. The turbulent seawater surged towards the Jinfeng. This wave was very terrifying. Thousands of tons of seawater would hit the Jinfeng, which would definitely cause huge damage to the Jinfeng. Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed, and he arrived on the Jinfeng in an instant. The 2 worlds are bound together. The two-dimensional gates twisted to form a spherical defense that instantly enveloped the entire golden front. The huge wave all entered Zhang Yi's different space. What a cunning guy. You know you can't do anything to me, so you choose to attack the people on the boat. Zhang Yi realized that this fin dragon had very high intelligence. It knows how to use its own advantages to fight Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi sneered, but didn't take it seriously at all. No matter how much seawater was absorbed, it was quickly discharged from the different space. He gave Lao Shan an order to fight back. Old Shan, release depth charges. When he came, he had a lot of weapons and equipment prepared. Especially for the situation that may arise at this time, he will certainly not be negligent. After Lao Shan received Zhang Yi's order, he immediately loudly arranged for his crew, get on deck. Drop depth charges. The crew showed extremely high combat qualities. They were ready and rushed to the deck immediately when Lao Shan gave the order. The Jinfeng has no launch port, so it uses drop depth charges. This weapon was originally developed to deal with submarines hidden on the seabed, but it's also very useful against this giant sea monster. Still the same sentence, thermal weapons are not useless in a world where aliens and beasts are rampant, as long as the yield is large enough. Depth bombs were dropped into the deep sea one after another. Zhang Yi attracted the attention of the fin dragon in midair. Therefore, the fin dragon did not notice the bomb, which was as big as a pea compared to its size. But after dozens of depth bombs were dropped at the depth where the fin dragon was, a violent explosion immediately occurred. Boom. 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 A dull and violent explosion sounded in the depths of the ocean, and violent shock waves wreaked havoc around the long body of the fin dragon. Its body is too huge, so it cannot avoid the impact of the explosion. Soon, scars appeared one after another on its steel-like body. Fin Dragon himself may not have thought that this kind of civilian ship, which seemed to have no weapons and equipment, could actually exert the power of a warship. Squeak! It screamed in pain. A white-purple beam of light soared into the sky from the sea, reaching an altitude of more than 1,000 meters. Then like a big sword, it quickly slashed down towards the Jinfeng. Zhang Yi was suspended in front of the golden feng. He opened his right hand and an invisible wave appeared at the dimensional gate, completely absorbing the power of the atomic breath. Through this attack, Zhang Yi could feel the approximate level of the fin dragon's power. Converted into a foreigner's ability index, it's about 9200 points. It's just that at this level, it can't threaten Zhang Yi. However, because it occupies the terrain advantage of the sea, it can even tangle with Zhang Yi, who has a power index of 9600 points. Zhang Yi couldn't kill it, but it couldn't kill Zhang Yi, so it could only launch an attack on the Jinfeng to complete its revenge. Seawater can weaken the impact. Whether it is divine power or void attack, it will be too weakened by millions of tons of seawater. If you want to kill it, it's still difficult to do it with ordinary methods. Zhang Yi frowned slightly. The sea is not his main battlefield, which is quite frustrating. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. 863, 40 minutes. The wave of attacks by the fin dragon did not cause any trouble to the Golden Edge. Instead, it was attacked by a depth charge and suffered serious injuries. In addition, its own ability, Atomic Breath, was completely restrained by Zhang Yi, and it realized that there would be no results if it continued to fight. So it dived into the deep sea bed again, and soon the huge and terrifying shadow under the Jinfeng ship disappeared. Zhang Yi spread his hands. It's fair. His performance at sea will be limited. But once the fin dragon comes ashore, this creature will be destroyed, no matter how strong it is. Unless it has the ability to move in a solid medium like Canyude's ability. Blue Shark, you're lucky. If I come in a warship this time, I will definitely kill you. After all, the Jinfeng is just a civilian ship, and its attack and defense capabilities are far inferior to those of a warship. Otherwise, with the current level of Huaxu Kingdom's warships and the use of more powerful high-speed torpedoes, even such a powerful monster would have no choice but to escape. The fin dragon is very cunning, and will come and fight once it finds an opportunity. Once it realizes that the situation is not good, it will run away as soon as possible. It also knows that the little man in the sky cannot go deep into the sea to fight it. Zhang Yi returned to the Jinfeng, and this matter was finally over for the time being. However, he once again reminded Lao Shan and other crew members to be more vigilant. This kind of sea monster is very vindictive, and it is unknown when it will attack again. Lao Shan repeatedly said yes. The attack he just experienced seemed to be handled lightly by Zhang Yi, but to others on the ship, it was no less than experiencing a magnitude earthquake. That kind of giant sea beast can easily destroy a ton ship and bury them in the sea. After the fin dragon escaped, Zhang Yi returned the boat to the sea. The blizzard continued, and the wind and waves were very strong, but after being unaffected by the eddy, the boat could be controlled. But it was impossible to move forward for the time being. The anchor had been lowered, and we had to wait until the storm passed before we could set off. In this way, the Jinfeng was still swaying. Zhang Yi sat on the chair in the control room and did not leave in a hurry. He also needs to be on guard against the sudden return of the fin dragon. On the Jinfeng, due to the lack of sight, many people still didn't know what was going on. For some people, this is a huge regret, because if they knew the power Zhang Yi had, they wouldn't have any ridiculous ideas. After a day and a night passed, the snowstorm slowly stopped. A thick layer of snow accumulated on the Jinfeng. Fragments of ice and snow were scattered on the sea, and large ice floes were floating in the sea. Zhang Yi had been watching in the control room all day, and was feeling a little sleepy at this time. He said to Lao Shan, assign someone to clean it up, and then you can hit the road. I'll go back and rest for a while. I feel weak. If you encounter a fin dragon or other problems, just wake me up. Yes, Mr. Zhang, Lao Shan said. Zhang Yi yawned and went back to his room to rest. Lao Shan immediately ordered a few people to be called from the bottom cabin to clean the snow on the ship. Soon, the Jinfeng weighed anchor and continued sailing. Only then did the chef Lao Zi come to the kitchen and start preparing the food. It was supposed to be lunch, but today the meal wasn't served until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. As usual, he pushed the dining cart and delivered the food from the Rockflow group to the cabin door, and then looked at the cabin door and called for people to come and eat. Cha Hee-sung walked out of the room, and his wife Kim Kim-mi walked out of the room facing her. Cha Hee-sung gave her a look. Jin Kim-mi understood immediately and walked towards Zi Changming with enchanting steps. Zi Changming originally planned to leave after delivering the meal, but when he saw the pitiful and charming look on Jin Jimu's face, he immediately changed his mind. Oppa, Salang Hei. Jin Kim-mi came to Zi Changming, and the other people receiving the meal hurriedly left in a sensible manner, looking at them with ambiguous eyes as they left. Then he looked at Cha Hei-cheng with a playful expression. Jin Kim-mi hugged Zi Changming's arm and said pitifully, Oppa, I want to eat some good food to replenish my body recently. Can you help me? Zi Changming chuckled, not caring that anyone was watching here, and started moving his hands around her body. You want to eat good food, right? This is easy to do. Oppa will satisfy you today. He pulled Jin Jimmy and hurried to the bathroom. There is no surveillance in the bathroom, and he doesn't want his colleagues to see his live broadcast. Zi Changming has a fiery face, and Kim Kim-mi is indeed a former ace member of the girl group, and is very good at seducing men. All of Zi Changming's attention was attracted by her. He didn't even notice the bearded Rudolph at the door as he passed by the sea of cars and entered their cabin. As a first-class pickpocket, stealing a communicator is not an easy task for him. In addition, he can make perfect use of blind spots to avoid being discovered by surveillance. The two of them are just standing side by side. If you look through the surveillance camera, you won't find anything strange about him. After a brief brushing, Rudolph had already stuffed Zi Changming's communication equipment into his pocket. Then he turned quickly and entered the cabin. She Hei-cheng closed the door, and then Rudolph sent the communication equipment to Eisenman, who was already ready. It must be as soon as possible. Otherwise we don't know what will happen. She Hei-cheng reminded. Eisenman took over the communication device and his expression immediately became extremely focused. He did not talk to She Hei-cheng, but turned on the communication device. As he expected, a password was required to unlock it, but this was not a problem for a top engineer from the Ligo group. The copy has already been edited. It was done by Cheng himself. This Silla official knew very well how to use the power of words. He described the matter in an exaggerated way, trying to catch the heart of the person in charge of the Colombian Ocean Fleet. Only in this way will the other party send troops to take them away. As time passed, the person in charge of wind protection cautiously leaned against the wall and listened carefully to the movements nearby. In the bathroom, Jinjimui also used what she had learned throughout her life and tried her best to hold off Zhang. To everyone else on board, the day was just another ordinary day at sea. But for them, it was extremely tense and exciting, with unstoppable anticipation and fear every minute and every second. They dare not imagine the cost of this failure. After all, Zhang Yi gave them the impression that he was not an easy person to talk to. Eisenman concentrated on cracking the communicator. The first step was not difficult for him. However, next, we have to find a way to contact the Colombian fleet. Fortunately, in 2051, technology has already reached a level that enables global communications. Whether it is Huaxu State's Nebula satellite system or Colombia's Starlink system, this can be done. After nearly half an hour of tossing, Eisenman finally solved the problem of the signal channel. Quickly, send the distress letter. Although Eisenman was shocked on the surface, he was actually exhausted and sweating profusely, and was close to collapse. He hurriedly handed the communicator to Cheng and asked him to complete the last step. Chapter 864 Signal. Cheng took the communicator and swallowed uncontrollably. His hands were still shaking. But time waited for no one, so he quickly entered the prepared copy. The last step is to click send. Because he was too nervous, Cheng moved his finger on the screen several times. In the end, Yunfan couldn't stand it anymore and pressed the send button for him. Go. Several people swallowed at the same time, finally letting go of the huge stone in their hearts. But the good times didn't last long, and they found that circles began to spin on the screen. Cheng panicked and quickly asked Eisenman, "Mr. Eisenman, what's going on?" Eisenman took a look and said helplessly, "This is at sea, and we are only using an ordinary personal communication device. It is normal for the signal transmission to be slow." Cheng asked nervously, "Will the delivery fail?" Eisenman was silent for a moment and shook his head. Several people relaxed and thought that everything was safe. Eisenman didn't want to dampen their emotions, but this couldn't be hidden. "I mean, I don't know either." Cheng and the others were in a frenzy again. They were scared to death every minute and every second. Fortunately, in the end, the circle was finally completed in their wide-eyed gazes. The green check mark indicates that the message has been successfully sent. Eisenman also took a long breath. "Let's see if it works now. If they believe what we say, they may send a ship to take us away." He looked out the window. "As long as we don't enter the inner sea of Huaxu, Colombia's fleet will definitely be able to find us and take us back." As a Colombian citizen, he is extremely confident in this. Others didn't have time to hear his sigh. "Clear all information quickly, don't leave any traces," Cheng said to him quickly. Eisenman picked up his phone and performed some clearing operations. At this time, Jinjimui in the bathroom could no longer hold on. It's not that she doesn't work hard, it's because Lao Zi's ability is indeed a bit stretched. The Easons cleared the traces of operation on the communicator and then handed it over to Rudolph. Rudolph cautiously came outside with the communicator and then coughed twice hard. After getting his signal, Kim was relieved. After 2 minutes, Zhang walked out of the bathroom with Jinjimui, who was wiping his mouth with a handkerchief while getting dressed. Rudolph pretended to go to the bathroom and hurried over, holding his stomach with one hand. Then quietly, he stuffed the communicator back into Zhang's body. Professional pickpockets, their proficiency in stealing is outrageous. Zhang's communicator was stuffed into the pocket of his pants. His pants were not loose. Generally, someone would be able to feel the communicator if it was taken away. But Rudolph naturally has his own way of doing it without being noticed. Zhang was very satisfied with Jinjimui's service today and left the middle cabin with satisfaction. He had no idea what Cheng and others had done today. Zhang Yi had just finished squatting for the whole night and was fast asleep in the room. The news quickly reached the Colombian Ocean Fleet located on Ropafly Island via satellite. Investigation Department. The soldier who received the communication signal glanced casually as usual. Recently, less and less information has been received. Seeing that it was this kind of privately sent information, they didn't bother to read it in the past. Because there's no need to guess, it's sent a signal for help. But now there are fewer and fewer survivors, or perhaps they have lost hope and no longer ask for help from the Navy. Perhaps it was a coincidence that the soldiers on duty today took a brief glance at the content of the message. This look made him discover something different. Stones with magical power can give people extremely powerful strength. Huaxu State even sent a large number of soldiers to sea specifically for this purpose. This distress call was very different. All the messages I received in the past were either pleading, angry curses in despair, or offering to donate all my wealth. And few people would give such a description of an alien. As a professional soldier, although he thought this statement was funny, he still thought it was different, and looked at it carefully again. Out of professional sensitivity, although he did not know whether what the other party said was true or false, he still reported the information to his superior. As a soldier, of course he didn't know the existence of such a thing as the source of God. Well, among their higher-ups, the literal translation of this kind of thing is holy origin substance, or human completion plan essence. After the news was passed to the superiors, it quickly attracted the attention of the chief of investigation, Bammer Hellison. Because as the head of the intelligence department, he certainly knew about the existence of this sacred substance. One of his main tasks is to search for information about this substance, the magical yellow stone. Huaxu Kingdom sent a large number of soldiers to get it. It's very suspicious, very suspicious. Suddenly, Harrison thought of something. About 3 months ago, an icebreaker from Huaxu State sailed to the southeastern part of the ocean. At first, they thought it was strange, but after judging that it was just a civilian icebreaker, they did not pay special attention to it. But combined with this letter asking for help, it suddenly gave people an unusual feeling. Hallison did not dare to delay, and out of caution, he reported the matter to Douglas, the commander of the ocean fleet, as soon as possible. The information passed from the investigation department had a very high priority, and soon this information was delivered to Douglas's desk. After reading the information, Douglas took 2 puffs on his pipe and immediately summoned Hallison to his office. Harrison, what is the source of this information? When the two met, Douglas asked straight to the point. Hallison replied, it came from the sea, and the message sent was an ordinary personal communicator. Douglas frowned slightly. This was not the first time he had encountered this situation. Due to the importance of the sacred source of matter, the Navy once had an order to give very high rewards to anyone who found this substance. Therefore, in order to obtain rewards, various departments often send back various news about it. But it has been proven that most of it is useless information. People in some small places who have never seen strangers or even find that someone has mutated will regard it as the function of the sacred source. Okay, I understand. You can go out. After Douglas asked Hallison to go back, he thought about it and handed the information to his assistant. Give it to Major Christian Connor of the Copernicus. His ship is responsible for patrolling that area of the sea, and ask him to go over and check it out. Chapter 865 Colombian Navy. After the Fin Dragon was scared off by Zhang Yi, the Jingfeng continued to move towards Xianhai City in Huaxu Kingdom. When eating the next morning, Zhang Yi saw Zhu Yang holding the child and coming to find Zalkela with a haggard look on his face. At this time, she was much more haggard than when she first went to sea, like an eggplant beaten by frost, and the arrogance and confidence on her face were gone. Especially after experiencing the massacre in the bottom cabin, it can be said that she has completely lost the qualification to be arrogant. Now when she sees Zhang Yi, she looks scared. Zhang Yi was curious about what she was doing here, so he walked towards the two of them. When Zhu Yang saw Zhang Yi, his expression suddenly changed, and he said to Zalkela, I'm going back first. You can give me an answer later. Then he hurried back to his room and closed the door from the inside. Zhang Yi looked playfully, thinking that this woman must be in trouble again. I wanted to ask him for help, but I was too embarrassed to ask, so I settled for the next best thing and turned to Zalkela. He walked up to Zhang Yi and asked with a smile, "What is she doing here?" Zhang Yi laughed. Her pure white catkins hugged Zhang Yi's arm, and she smiled softly. "What else can I do? It's because of the child." She was very excited at first and wanted to imitate others in being a mother and taking care of her children. But it wasn't long before she was almost driven crazy by the baby. It was two people taking care of her together. If she had been alone, she would have collapsed a long time ago. Zhang Yi smiled faintly. She made her own choice. What does it matter to her? I have promised you not to interfere in her mess. Let her swallow the bitter consequences of her choice. Zhang Yi smiled and nodded. Don't worry, I won't agree to anything without your approval. Feeling Zhang Yi's soft and elastic body, Zhang Yi's heart moved, and he leaned close to her neck and whispered, "Remember the bet the two of us made before? Now I've won." Zhang Yi's face suddenly turned red. The content of that bet really made her a little scared, but she also had a faint expectation. She had never tried that kind of thing. "I'm willing to admit defeat, and I'll just accept it." She glanced at Zhang Yi charmingly, then took the initiative to hold Zhang Yi's hand and walked into the bedroom. This afternoon, the Jinfeng cut through the water on the calm ice sea and sailed home quickly. Liu Shan sat in the control room, smoking a cigarette and chatting with the crew. Halfway through the voyage, they cleared away many troubles on the way, including pirates and the navies of some small countries. So the problems on the return trip will be reduced a lot. However, Zhang Yi made everyone be more vigilant. Because they didn't bring anything with them when they came, they didn't have to worry, even if they encountered the navies of some big countries. But on the way back, there was very important information on the ship, not to be lost. However, people are always afraid of what will happen. Just when Liu Shan and the crew were chatting about pornographic jokes to relieve their boredom, suddenly, the Jinfeng's radio received a mellow warning. The meaning obtained through machine translation is, "Please pay attention to the suspicious ships ahead. We are the Colombian Navy and are about to board and inspect your ship. Please stop traveling immediately and cooperate with us. I'm warning you, don't try to resist or escape. Otherwise we will attack directly." The sudden warning put all crew members on alert. Liu Shan jumped up from his chair and ran to the console. The other party repeated this passage. Liu Shan's pupils shrank. Colombia's Navy. Things are really bad now. When sailing on the sea, the most fearful thing is meeting them. Liu Shan himself had no idea and hurriedly informed Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi's expression became solemn when he heard the news. The Colombian Navy was in existence that he was unwilling to come into contact with now. Even now, Zhang Yi is already a top-notch alien. But meeting those guys on the sea will still bring huge pressure to Zhang Yi. Before leaving, ZHU Zheng once specially reminded Zhang Yi, the most important thing to pay attention to is Colombia's ocean fleet. Because this fleet is the ace card of the Colombian Navy. It even has the strength to compete with the East China Sea region, the strongest navy in the Huaxu Kingdom. Among the 6 major regions of Huaxu Kingdom, in terms of pure force, the Donghai region may be second only to the Shengjing region. This shows how powerful the Colombian Navy's ocean fleet is. Not only do they possess a variety of world-class ships, they also possess many powerful aliens. The last thing Zhang Yi wanted to meet was them. What happened? Did they say why they came? Zhang Yi was changing clothes and communicating with Liu Shan very quickly. The presence of the Colombian Navy was particularly unusual. They were not intercepted when they came. Why were they intercepted on their return? The Jinfeng is only a civilian ship in name. Easy interception and inspection can easily cause unnecessary disputes with Huaxu Kingdom. The larger the power, the more cautious one should be. Zhang Yi even had some doubts. Had they already gotten some news? Liu Shan replied, "They just said that we are a suspicious ship and need to be inspected routinely." Routine inspection? Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. This place is still located on the high seas, so there is no routine inspection. How far away is the other party from us? According to the radar, there are still more than 20 nautical miles. Don't make any moves. Just stop and move forward, as they say. Yes. Zhang Yi changed his clothes and began to make secret calculations in his mind. Seeing Zhang Yi's serious look, Zhao Ke couldn't help but ask what happened. "We have encountered the Colombian Navy. We may be in big trouble now." "Them?" Zhao Keller was also a little nervous. What did they come for? Zhang Yi did not tell Zhao Keller about the source of God. So until now, Zhang Yi didn't know what the purpose of Zhang Yi's trip was. She was still guessing whether it was simply to rescue someone of high status. Zhang Yi changed into his combat uniform and kissed her on the face. He gave Zhao Keller a reassuring smile. Don't think too much about anything. There won't be any danger. Even if there was a fight, the worst he could do was abandon the ship and escape with Zhao Keller. But when the time comes, he will have to abandon a dozen crew members. It was the only thing he would regret. As for Zhu Yang and the other people on the boat, Zhang Yi could only say that there was nothing he could do to help. Although space shuttle can quickly cross the kilometer limit, but after each use, there will still be a stagnation in the middle instead of continuous movement. Therefore, he can only take one person with him at most. As a tray-based alien, he is only equivalent to a well-trained soldier in terms of physical strength. Chapter 866. Shit the blame first. Zhang Yi put on his combat uniform and then reached out to move the wardrobe. He reached out and groped the wall and then opened a dark room with ease. Kenna, please go in and stay for a while. This dark room is a special place on the Jinfeng. It was originally prepared to deal with pirates. Zhang Yi specially asked Chen Jingwen to reinforce it. As long as he hides here, it will be difficult to be discovered and it will be difficult to break through. Zhang Yi only cared about Zhao Keller's safety, so facing the upcoming crisis, he asked Zhao Keller to hide inside. Zhang Yi, you have to be careful too. Zhao Keller felt the change in the atmosphere and walked into the dark room without saying anything, leaving him with a trusting look. It won't be long. I'll have everything sorted out soon, Zhang Yi said to her with a smile. After hiding Zhao Keller, Zhang Yi immediately chose to contact the Jiangnan region headquarters. When you encounter a big problem, of course you should seek advice from your leader. In this way, no matter what goes wrong, you won't take the blame anyway. But before that, he went to the next door and knocked on Zhu Yang's door. Although Zhu Yang's mission was more for gold plating, it had no practical effect. But she is Zhu Zheng's biological niece, so taking her with her to find Zhu Zheng will make it easier to share responsibilities. The Colombian Navy ship arrived soon. After Zhang Yi knocked on the door, he saw Zhu Yang with a haggard look on his face, and he could hear Tommy crying wow inside. If you encounter trouble, you must contact Zhu Shui immediately. After Zhang Yi said to Zhu Yang, he said to Su Nuangxi, who was taking care of Tommy in the room, take the child out immediately and go to other rooms. Su Nuangxi heard this and argued, didn't you see Tommy crying so hard? Zhang Yi walked over and slapped her directly in the face. Get out. This immediately made Su Nuangxi blush. She was full of tears and just wanted to accuse Zhang Yi. But when she met Zhang Yi's murderous eyes, she felt like a bucket of cold water was poured down on her. She didn't dare to say a word, and she quickly left the room with Tommy as if to escape. Zhu Yang was a little unhappy, but she didn't dare to show it at this time. Just asked, what's the trouble? The Colombian Navy is coming to inspect our ship. Zhu Yang immediately frowned upon hearing this. Although she was not deeply involved in the world, she also knew that this mission was of great importance, especially that other countries could not obtain the information. The most important thing for us is to block Li Zhangyi's mouth. Zhang Yi sneered. Can you guarantee that he did not tell anyone else the information during the half year on Yanliu Island? Everyone on the ship cannot make any mistakes today. Otherwise, I cannot afford such a huge risk. With that said, Zhang Yi pointed at her. Of course, after contacting Zhu Shui later, you can take on this responsibility in your own name. Zhu Yang's face froze. Why should I? She complained, but she was still very honest and quickly took out the communication base station and skillfully communicated with the Jiangnan region headquarters. Soon, Zhu Zheng's communicator was connected here, and Zhu Zheng's majestic and square face appeared on the transparent blue screen. Skylark, what happened? Zhu Zheng crossed his hands on the table and asked in a majestic voice. Zhu Yang glanced at Zhang Yi next to him. Zhang Yi leaned his head over and said, Shui Zhu is me. In just a moment, Zhu Yang discovered that her uncle actually had the unique skill of changing faces. When he saw Zhang Yi, the majesty and solemnity on his face suddenly melted away like ice and snow meeting the sun. Instead, his face was full of smiles, like a kind old man. "Zhang Yi, what's wrong? What happened?" Zhang Yi said, "The worst happened. On the way back, we encountered an inspection by the Colombian Navy." When Zhu Zheng heard this, his eyes became sharp. He crossed his hands under his chin. "Colombia's Navy, the last thing I want to encounter is them. What's the current situation? Tell me in detail." Zhang Yi will make a long story short. Their ship has given us a warning, and is approaching soon. The specific reason is still unclear, and I can't tell whether they were just doing a general inspection, or discovered our mission. What should we do next? Please give instructions from the leader. Zhang Yi is very smart. According to his character, he would kill people accidentally. If he killed someone from the Colombian Navy and the ship sank, it would definitely be a major accident. When the time comes to hold people accountable, whose fault is it? So now he throws the question to Zhu Zheng. "Anyway, I will do whatever you ask me to do. As a subordinate, the most taboo thing is to act based on guessing the leader's intentions when encountering a problem that you are not sure of. Explaining things clearly will not only prevent you from showing that you have no opinion, but will also make your boss think that you are cautious. To put it simply, dump the blame and that's it. In the workplace, the most important thing is to protect yourself first." Zhu Zheng also fell into silence. Nothing is clear about the situation now, and no one knows how to best handle it. The most important thing at the moment is to figure out their purpose, and to ensure that the information about that thing will not be leaked. Zhu Zheng said deeply. Zhang Yi nodded. "You are right, I think so too. But if there is a conflict, or I find that the mission is at risk of being exposed, can I be allowed to do it easily? For example, destroy them?" The smile on Zhang Yi's lips became thicker. It was this matter that concerned him most. If the Colombian Navy's warships were really destroyed, it would be impossible unless he had the power of the region to back him up. Otherwise Zhang Yi would not be asking for trouble. To put it bluntly, if there was no one to support him, even if he handed over the information about the source of God to others, he would not be stupid enough to fight against the entire Colombian Navy ocean fleet alone on the ocean. That is tantamount to seeking death. Zhu Zheng's gaze became deep. He said without any hesitation, "No, the information on such things is top secret, and it is related to the interests of our entire Jiangnan region, and even the entire Huaxu kingdom. Zhang Yi, you must ensure that the information will not be leaked, no matter what means are used. Do you understand?" Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. "No matter what means are used, that is, at any cost. I can do anything, right?" His eyes glanced at Zhu Zheng vaguely. "In other words, it won't matter, even if you abandon the ship and leave by then, right?" "Of course, in order to ensure the absolute security of the information. As he leaves, he kills everyone on the ship. Yes, at any cost. Even if it means going to war with Colombia's Navy." Zhu Zheng has a firm attitude towards this. "Don't worry, if something happens, someone from us will go over to help you. And I will communicate with the East China Sea region and ask their people to contain the Colombian naval fleet. And you must bring the information about that thing back." At this time, if there was no way to obtain the information about the source of God alone, Zhu Zheng would rather share it with the East China Sea region. After all, that would be better than the news leaking to Colombia. "With your words, I know what to do. Well, go ahead and do it boldly. Remember, there is a strong motherland behind you." Zhang Yi raised his right hand to his temple. Loyalty. After ending the call, he put down his hands. He had already filmed the entire conversation with the video equipment in his combat uniform. In case something goes wrong, Leo Zhu will take the blame. Chapter 867 Prepare for Battle. After reporting to Zhu Zheng, Zhang Yi knew what to do. He turned away. Zhu Zheng quickly grabbed his sleeve. "Zhang Yi, what should we do next? Is there anything I can help with?" Zhang Yi looked back at her and said, "Don't cause trouble, that's the greatest help to me." Zhu Zheng's face froze, and he silently let go of his hand in shame. "However, it's hard to say this." Zhang Yi suddenly said, "If I encounter special circumstances, I do need your help. It's just that the sacrifice may be a little bigger for you. Are you willing? Zhu Yang thought for a while, and she really didn't do much useful things along the way. Sacrifice or something like that. With Zhang Yi here, it's impossible for anything to really happen to her. After all, she is Zhu Zheng's niece. So she nodded. Yes, I do. A meaningful smile appeared on the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth. She probably didn't know that that kind of sacrifice meant that she would become an outcast and be silenced by Zhang Yi. Anyway, I will try my best to avoid this situation. Zhang Yi smiled slightly and then disappeared directly. The next moment, he appeared in the middle cabin. There was someone here in the aisle, and he was startled when he saw Zhang Yi suddenly appeared. Zhang Yi ignored their shocked looks and went directly to the room where Li Zhangyu was, then opened the door and walked in. Li Zhangyu, come with me. Regardless of everyone's surprised looks, Zhang Yi took Li Zhangyu's arm and led him out of the room. When the two of them arrived outside, Zhang Yi said straight to the point, now, you have to tell me everything about that yellow stone. Because now we are in big trouble, and I must ensure that the information will not be leaked. Li Zhangyu quickly understood what happened through Zhang Yi's explanation. His face was full of surprise and worry, but after a moment, he nodded and said, I understand. I will tell you everything I know. When things got to this point, he had no choice but to trust Zhang Yi. I found that stone in a place called Foggy Valley on Star Island. Li Zhangyu told everything about the mysterious yellow stone. Foggy Valley is located in the southeast of Star Island country and is a valley covering a large area. Because the scene there is shrouded in fog and the terrain is difficult, it has always been a popular place for adventure enthusiasts to explore. Li Zhangyu took his girlfriend on a camping trip before and accidentally discovered a mysterious yellow light source in the mountain stream deep in the Foggy Valley. At midnight, the projected light turns the entire stream a crystal clear yellow. He went deep into the valley out of curiosity and found a terrifying and deep crack below, which seemed to lead to the ground. Because it was night, he did not dare to go and check. However, when he went to see it again during the day the next day, everything from last night disappeared in an instant, and even the deep ravine seemed to have never appeared. Just when he thought everything was a dream, he saw a small piece of fluorescent stone emitting yellow light in the stream. At that time, Li Zhangyu didn't know what the use of this thing was. I picked it up just out of curiosity and put it in the box where I collect gadgets. I didn't know at that time that it would have such a big effect. Otherwise, Li Zhangyu's face was full of regret. At that time, the end of the world had not yet come. How could he know how powerful the source of God was? Just a small stone stained with energy allowed him to awaken his powers. If he completely obtains the complete source of God, no one knows to what extent he will reach. It was also the first time that Zhang Yi heard someone describe the characteristics of the source of God in detail. It's a pity that Li Zhangyu didn't really see the appearance of the source of God clearly. Where did that thing appear from? The only thing that is certain is that it appeared underground. Since the end of the world, many incredible things have happened in this world. The emergence of the source of God even caused some changes in Zhang Yi's worldview. It even feels like the arrival of the end of the world is not an accident. Star Island, Foggy Valley. Zhang Yi remembered this place. Just stay on the ship. You don't need to ask about other things. Zhang Yi asked Li Zhangyu to return to the cabin. As for warning Li Zhangyu not to talk too much when the Colombian Navy appears, it is meaningless. There must be people on the ship who know about this. So Zhang Yi will not give them a chance. Or, everyone leaves together or. Zhang Yi looked at Li Zhangyu's back and said silently in his heart, just bury yourself in this endless ice ocean. Zhang Yi came to the control room. Lao Shan and other crew members were already ready for battle. Everyone put on body armor and carried submachine guns. Seeing Zhang Yi coming, everyone immediately shouted, Mr. Zhang, how long until the ship arrives? About 3 minutes. Very good. Don't be too nervous. Just perform your duties. I will take care of this matter. Facing Colombia's warships, these Mughal soldiers could not play much role. At this time, on the warship Copernicus, the captain is Navy Lieutenant Commander Christian Connor. After receiving the order from the headquarters, he immediately asked the Copernicus to move towards the Jinfeng. Connor stood in the command room with his hands behind his back. Seeing that the Jinfeng had stopped, he nodded with satisfaction. It is indeed very suspicious for an icebreaker from Huaxu State to sail alone on the sea. I can't imagine that the power of the people is enough to support such a long-distance sea voyage. There must be something wrong with them, and they are ready to fight. Connor's sense of smell is very keen, and judging from experience, there must be something wrong with this ship. The torpedo room of the Copernicus has been opened, and they will immediately launch high-speed torpedoes as soon as they find that something is wrong. In the sea, this kind of weapon is very powerful, and it is difficult for humans to compete. Even if there are strangers on the ship, once the ship is destroyed, it will most likely lose its combat effectiveness, except for aliens with marine attributes. But even so, Connor did not let anyone open the cover of the missile launch bay, because in his opinion, there is no need to waste precious missile resources unless you encounter a particularly powerful enemy. Things are different now. After the Ice Age, even Columbia's military manufacturing industry was greatly affected. Cutting-edge weaponry is slow to produce and difficult to transport across oceans to the neon Roperflies. Therefore, if you use one or less of these gadgets, you must know how to economize. Kill him. Take someone to board the ship for inspection, Connor said to a man wearing a thick military uniform next to him. The man had a hooked nose, blue eyes that were pale, and his skin was pale in color, making him look a little oozing. He is Lieutenant Commander Ballard. Kill him. Chapter 868 Rain Man. Connor was very cautious. In this era of great mutation, no one knows what kind of enemy they will encounter one day. So he just locked the Jinfeng with torpedoes from a distance, but did not directly let the Copernicus get closer. Instead, Ballard Killam was asked to board the ship for inspection. Yes, Captain. Giovanna took the order and left. Connor also asked the soldiers to warn the Jinfeng. Please pay attention to the ships in front. We are the Colombian Navy Ocean Fleet, and we will conduct a boarding inspection on you next. Please actively cooperate, and do not try to escape or resist. Otherwise, we have the right to attack your ship. After Zhang Yi heard the voice from the other party, he frowned slightly, and a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. Board inspection? Lao Shan said with a sullen face. Mr. Zhang, should we prepare to attack their ship? Forget it. With the few weapons and equipment we have, how can we fight against Colombia's most advanced cruiser? Everyone performs his duties. You don't have to worry about anything. Just wait for my instructions. Zhang Yi turned around and walked towards the deck. But after walking out of the hatch, he was suddenly surprised to find that the sky above his head had changed color. The gloomy clouds gradually turned from gray-white to complete gray, hovering and entangled above their heads. Patter, a voice that was both familiar and unfamiliar to Zhang Yi, suddenly appeared in his ears. For a moment, Zhang Yi's thoughts were in a trance. He shouldn't be unfamiliar with this voice, but it was indeed a long time since he heard it. Tick. Something suddenly fell on his shoulder. Zhang Yi looked down and found that it was a drop of rain. At this time, the outside temperature is between and degrees below zero. It actually rained under such circumstances, which made Zhang Yi almost think he was hallucinating. But soon, more and more rain really fell from the clouds and fell on the Jinfeng. Is it really raining? Zhang Yi was a little surprised, but he immediately realized that this was definitely not ordinary rain. But others don't know. They had been depressed on the boat for too long, and now they saw you, whom they had not seen for a long time. They all happily ran out of the cabin to watch the fun. People in the bottom cabin cannot get out, but the Rockflow group is free to move around during the day, so they rushed out. It's raining. It's really raining. It's great. Has the Ice Age passed? Are we going to go back to our old lives? Zhu Young and Sunu Angxi were also attracted by the rain. The two of them were leaning against the window, looking intoxicated. What a beautiful rain. Let's go out and have a look. Let's go together. The two women ran out holding hands and smiling. At this time, the people on the deck cheered happily. However, this sound did not last long, and soon the crowd screamed. The rain fell on their heads, and their hair immediately became bald, and bursts of white smoke appeared. The thick cotton clothes were also corroded, and had big holes. What? Their skin began to show hideous red spots. Everyone stopped cheering, and rushed to the cabin. However, some people noticed the Colombian warship parked on the sea. Shehecheng, Ziyunfan and others looked at each other with excitement in their eyes. Their plan succeeded, and the Colombian warship really came to rescue them. Sunuangsi and Zhu Yung stood in front of the cabin door. Sunuangsi looked into the distance curiously. Huh? Is that Colombia's warship? She actually said to Zhu Yung with some joy. Look, Colombia's warship is so handsome. Zhu Yung frowned and glanced at her coldly. I'm afraid the person who came here is not good. How could be? Sunuangsi tilted her head in confusion. Colombia is a country that loves to maintain peace. They must be here to protect us. Zhu Yung took a deep breath helplessly and was too lazy to pay attention to Sunuangsi, but her eyes looked uneasily at the warship on the sea level. Everyone go back to the cabin. This is very corrosive acid rain, Zhang Yi said to everyone calmly. In fact, the intelligence system of his combat uniform had already analyzed the composition of the rainwater immediately. If it didn't contain special ingredients, it would just be hail. But these did not do any damage to his combat uniform. But the Jinfeng didn't have such good luck. The highly corrosive acid rain fell on the ship, causing the paint on the ship to begin to fade, and the corrosion scratches were as ugly as tears. The whole ship seemed to have been baptized by time and became grey. Zhang Yi stood on the deck and did not return to the cabin. His eyes looked forward. If you look at it from a high altitude at this time, you will find that this acid rain only covers the area around the Jinfeng. The Copernicus did not approach, but someone has already arrived. Zhang Yi is a top space alien. He is very sensitive to fluctuations in space. The rain kept falling. On the deck in front of me, such a strange scene suddenly appeared. The rain stopped in midair, sliding down to both sides, as if it encountered some obstacle. When you look closely, it slowly turns into a group of humanoid beings. In the void, their appearance slowly appeared. That was 10 heavily armed Colombian Marines. When Zhang Yi saw them, he subconsciously compared them with the Malay Navy that he had encountered before. Just from the analysis of weapons and equipment and the momentum of the soldiers, the Colombian Navy is more than 2 or 3 levels ahead of them. It can be said that they are covered in equipment and armed to the teeth. The person standing in front of them gave people a cold and terrifying feeling. He was wearing a thick dark green raincoat, a black mask on his face, and his hands behind his back. Those who can. Zhang Yi made a judgment immediately. As a top-level alien who has been on the battlefield for a long time, most of the time, instinct is enough to judge who is an alien and who is not. This acid rain seems to be his masterpiece. He looked at the sea again. No ships were seen approaching, and the Copernicus was at least 5 nautical miles away. Therefore, the opponent's abilities may also include the ability to be invisible and sneak. After seeing those Colombian Navy, Shehecheng and others could no longer contain their excitement. BMO swallowed his saliva and immediately wanted to go over and ask for help. Shehecheng quickly grabbed him. Don't be anxious first. Let's see the situation before we talk. If they make a mistake, wouldn't they just expose themselves? Zhang Yi will definitely not be able to spare them by then. Only then did BMO suppress his inner excitement and stared over there. Lao Shan and other crew members also came out with guns in hand and looked at the soldiers coldly. But in the eyes of those soldiers, what they did was particularly funny. The gap in weapons and equipment is not a small one. What's more, there is a top-notch Copernicus cruiser behind them. This is the ship of Huax's state, and we are citizens of Huax's state. It is not right for you to intercept our ship on the high seas without authorization. Zhang Yi talked nonsense nonchalantly. Some situations are like this. Even if it is useless, you still have to say it. Before determining the other party's purpose, necessary communication is still indispensable. Kilim's voice came from under the raincoat. Are you the captain of this ship? Zhang Yi nodded. Yes, it's me. Kilim continued. We are the Colombian Navy. We received intelligence that your ship forcibly detained several of our Colombian citizens. Inhumane killings also occurred. Therefore, we are taking you back to cooperate with the investigation. Chapter 869. 2 difficult choices. As soon as Kilim finished speaking, BMO and others were ecstatic. They finally determined that these people were here to pick them up and leave. For more than half a month, they have been living in panic. I was afraid that Zhang Yi would kill them one day. Now, their savior has arrived. They believed in their hearts that the Colombian Navy was invincible. As long as they showed up, Zhang Yi would have to let them go. BMO raised his hands and cheered. Oh my god. You are finally here. Praise God. Praise the great Colombian Navy. He covered his head with his clothes, and regardless of the acid rain outside, he excitedly rushed towards the sailors. At this time, he just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible, and then return to his hometown to find the whereabouts of his wife and children. Seeing BMO taking action, several foreigners from the Yanliu group also ran over there. They cheered happily as they ran, as if they were Andy escaping from Shawshank. I think I have escaped from the dangerous prison and returned to the embrace of civilization. Cheng raised his hands excitedly. Long live Colombia. Long live. When they passed by Zhang Yi, Lao Shan and others, in order to vent their emotions over the past few days, they deliberately twisted their buttocks in a playful manner, their faces full of ridicule. That expression is clearly saying, now that we are protected by the Colombian Navy, just get angry. Su Nuanxi was also very excited, her eyes were rippling. Suddenly she said to Zhu Yang, Senior, I want to go with them. After all, I'm also a citizen of Colombia. I think I would rather go back to Colombia than go back with you. Zhu Yang was really angry. Are you crazy? Are you so slow that you can't feel that they are coming with bad intentions? Su Nuanxi sighed and looked at her resentfully. Senior sister, please don't always have paranoia about being persecuted, okay? Colombia is a beautiful and free country and we will not be forced to do anything. Anyway, I've had enough of this ship. That guy named Zhang has been treating me very badly. I want to leave with them. Su Nuanxi said, and wanted to leave together. But Zhu Yang held her tightly. Idiot. You should take a good look at the situation first. Su Nuanxi took a closer look and realized that something was obviously wrong. There was a tense situation on the deck. Lao Shan and other crew members had turned on the safety, and there might be a firefight at any time. Her face turned pale, and she quickly took 2 steps back. Decided to wait and see for a while before talking. On the deck, Zhang Yi looked at Cheng, BMO, and Zi Yunfen with an unexpected look in his eyes. Only then did he realize that it was these guys who had secretly contacted the Colombian Navy. But there were 2 things he didn't understand. The first point is how they contacted the Colombian Navy. They obviously had all the communication equipment confiscated. The second and most important point. Why did they contact the Colombian Navy? On the Jinfeng, Zhang Yi has always been very good to the people in the Yanliu group. They have never been short of food or warmth. And he also learned from Li Zhangyu and others that Colombian officials would not rescue Colombians overseas at all. BMO and the others' previous calls for help came to nothing. Even so, they still chose to betray Zhang Yi and betrayed Zhang Yi into the arms of the Colombian Navy. Zhang Yi is a rational person and he cannot analyze this matter logically. But soon, he figured it out. There are still too many stupid people in this world, and there is no need to think about what is going on in a pig's head. In just an instant, Zhang Yi wanted to understand many things. It is impossible for the Colombian Navy to come to rescue people for no reason. There must be some conspiracy. And what allows them to dispatch warships must be very important information. Therefore, at this time, the information about the source of God may have been passed to the Colombian Navy by Cheng and others. Although they only heard some information from Li Zhangyu. But the top forces all attach great importance to the existence of the source of God. Therefore, even if they did not confirm the authenticity of the information, they would still send people over to take BMO, Shehuanzeng and others back. The same is true. Zhang Yi can't let them leave. Zhang Yi waved to Lao Shan and others. They understood and immediately stopped Cheng and several others who wanted to run over with their guns. The expressions of those people suddenly changed. What do you mean? I'm a Colombian citizen, and you can't stop us from leaving. You are illegally detaining us. Sir, help us leave quickly. We have endured inhuman torture here, and I demand protection. Several people were extremely excited at this time, and they eagerly wanted to leave. Moreover, with Colombia's navy already appearing, they were confident and dared to roar at Zhang Yi. Even Cheng, who had knelt in front of Zhang Yi like a dog and licked the soles of his shoes, looked arrogant. Kilim looked at Zhang Yi and said, "These people are citizens of Colombia. We want to take them away." His voice was full of arrogance. "Besides, your actions are very suspicious. We need to conduct a thorough inspection of the entire ship. From now on, your ship will be taken over by the Colombian Navy. No one should make dangerous moves, otherwise it will be regarded as an attack on the Colombian Navy, and we will kill you on the spot. Since we have already boarded the ship for inspection, there is no need to be secretive about this matter. Since you are pursuing excitement, then follow through to the end and simply take away the boat. By the way, the people on the ship can also be used as laborers in their army." Upon hearing this, Shi Cheng pointed at Zhang Yi and said loudly to Kilim, "Sir, I want to report that person. He is from the Huaxu Kingdom, and he is a high official. There is a woman beside him, who is also a senior official of the Huaxu Kingdom. Relatives of the official. These people have ulterior motives for going to sea. They hide very big secrets. We must not let them go." They were confident that facing the powerful Colombian Navy, people like Zhang Yi could only surrender obediently. Su Nuangxi couldn't stand it. She stood up and said righteously, "Although he did something wrong before, he was the one who took us away from the island. I think everyone should not cling to past grudges. Those who are willing to go to Colombia should go to Colombia, and those who are willing to go to Huaxu Kingdom should go to Huaxu Kingdom. Wouldn't it be great?" Su Nuangxi looked at Kilim. "Sir, we citizens of Colombia are willing to leave with you. Please don't embarrass other people on the ship. Thank you." Her smiling and innocent look made many people look at her with a weird look on her face. Kilim glanced at her coldly, then ignored her. Zhang Yi looked at the faces of Shi Cheng and others, and narrowed his eyes slightly. There are only two options before him now. First, kill everyone on the boat, and then escape with Zhao Ke. Second, destroy the Colombian Navy in front of you. However, there is a great escape at sea. No matter which choice you make, it will have huge negative consequences. If you choose the first option, all crew members including ZHU Young will die, which may cause some minor problems on ZHU Zheng's side. Choose the second option. On this blue sea, on the high seas, completely breaking up with the Colombian Navy will lead to unimaginable revenge. Obviously, it will be more convenient to choose the first option. But Zhang Yi didn't want to do this. He doesn't care about other people's lives. But because he was oppressed by the Colombian Navy, he turned to kill his own crew and compatriots, which would make Zhang Yi feel physiologically uncomfortable. Soon, Zhang Yi made his choice. He was thinking silently in his mind. The Copernicus had been aiming its torpedoes at the Golden Front. The distance between the two ships is 5 nautical miles. If you use space shuttle, it will take about 9 seconds. There are Colombian soldiers on the ship, so the other party may not launch a torpedo attack immediately, but it does not rule out that the other party is ruthless and does not care about the life and death of his men. First of all, in order to ensure the secrecy of the mission, there are no advanced combat capabilities other than him on the ship. In other words, it would be inappropriate to abandon the few people in front of us and capture the Copernicus first. In that case, all the people on the Jimpfeng would be controlled by the Rain Man leaders in front of them. Secondly, Zhang Yi could not quickly kill the Colombian soldiers in front of him. Once its strength is exposed, the Copernicus will definitely launch torpedoes directly. This is a dilemma. However, time is not on Zhang Yi's side. Rain Man, Ballad Kilim has prepared for Zhang Yi and others' resistance. He took a step back, and his whole person disappeared into the rain. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 870 Surrender. Shi Cheng and others were still arrogantly provoking Zhang Yi and other crew members. They wiggled their butts unscrupulously, raised their middle fingers, and laughed wildly, venting their anger over the past half-month. Even if Zhang Yi provided them with enough food, they would not starve to death on Yanliu Island. But they still hate Zhang Yi, because they felt that Zhang Yi and the crew were too arrogant towards them, like herders raising livestock. This is probably what it means. to win favor with rice and fight against rice with hatred. They will look forward to the beauty they imagine in their hearts in the distance. But they are picky about the people in front of them who give them benefits. But none of this matters anymore. The moment Kilim disappeared into the rain, Zhang Yi also made his decision. Wait a minute. I want to talk to your commander. I can give him what he wants. Zhang Yi shouted loudly. As soon as Zhang Yi said these words, Kilim's figure appeared again. You figured it out, right? Zhang Yi took a deep breath. We are just an icebreaker and cannot be an enemy of Colombia's navy. Since we have no choice, we might as well confess in exchange for better treatment. He said very frankly. Everyone on the boat had a look of astonishment on their faces. Maybe they didn't expect that Zhang Yi would surrender directly without resisting. Zhu Yang looked at Zhang Yi, his eyes widened, and said angrily, Zhang Yi, how could you do this? Are you worthy of my uncle? Zhang Yi cursed in his heart. Damn woman, you don't have any eyesight. Fortunately, Kilim had never heard of Zhang Yi's name. There was no surprise on the faces of She Haicheng and others. They looked at each other triumphantly, and both felt that the situation in front of them was expected. After all, who would dare to confront the mighty Colombian Navy on the sea? That's right. He who knows current affairs is a hero. Cha Haicheng said with a smile. Zi Yunfen raised his glasses and teased. Your Chinese idioms are getting better and better. She Haicheng glared. Nonsense. This is a 6,000-year-old traditional culture of Silla. What does it have to do with you? Zhang Yi ignored Zhu Yang's cannibalistic eyes and calmly said to Kilim, I won't make any unnecessary resistance. That's what you came here for, right? I already have a lot of information in my hands, but I can't tell you directly. The information has been leaked, so it's better to use it as bait. He said to Kilim, I want to discuss this matter with your commander personally. Everything that happened here naturally fell into the eyes of the captain of the Copernicus, Christian Connor. Is he talking about the Holy Sephiroth? There was a hint of eagerness in Christian Connor's eyes. He thought for a while and said to Kilim through the communicator, I can agree to his request. Get rid of all his weapons and bring him here. In their eyes, the entire Jinfeng is just a big fish waiting to be slaughtered, and they can cut it however they want. In addition, Zhang Yi voluntarily surrendered and asked for valuable information about the source of God. Of course, Connor couldn't resist this temptation. After all, once the information is obtained this time, he will gain a huge military merit. After receiving the order, Kilim asked Zhang Yi to hand over all the weapons in his hands and follow them back to the Copernicus. Zhang Yi was secretly cautious, but he put down the 2 pistols as they asked. 2 soldiers came forward and carefully inspected Zhang Yi's body. After confirming that there was no problem, they cuffed Zhang Yi's hands. When Liu Xian and others saw this, they naturally threw all the guns in their hands onto the deck. Seeing such a scene, everyone on the boat had different expressions. Zhu Yang was angry and puzzled, and thought to himself, why is the Jiangnan god of war so useless? She was greatly disappointed, but for a moment she lost her backbone. If her identity is exposed and taken away by the Colombian Navy, it will be a huge shame for the Jiangnan region. By that time, she only had one chance to die. She could only hope that Zhang Yi would not reveal her identity. The expressions of the people in the Yanliu group varied. Some were deep in thought, some looked worried, and some showed joy. After all, the entire Yanliu group is filled with all kinds of people, and everyone has different ideas. She Haicheng and the others were so angry that they couldn't stop laughing. Only Liu Xian and the others looked calm. The reason why these people doubt Zhang Yi is simply because they don't understand what kind of person Zhang Yi is. After such a long time, are there still not many people who have been tricked to death by Zhang Yi in various ways? He is a man who has no dignity at all as a strong man, and he goes to the extreme. But he was also ruthless to the extreme. If anyone really lets down their guard against him, what will happen? Don't touch the people on my ship for now, if you want to get information from me, Zhang Yi said to Kilim. Kilim snorted coldly, we are the Colombian Navy. The Colombian Navy is known as the strongest in the world, and it goes without saying that they have strict military discipline. Besides, now that they need to obtain information from Zhang Yi, they will naturally not take action against Liu Xian and the others. At this moment, Zhang Yi had to take this step in order to save the lives of the entire ship and protect the information about the source of the gods. Kelim grabbed Zhang Yi's arm with his strong hands, and he ordered a few soldiers to stay on the ship to guard the others. And he himself took Zhang Yi back to the Copernicus. At this time, Zhang Yi also discovered the magic of Kelim's ability. As he moved, the rain moved with him, and he was able to shuttle by himself in the rain. No wonder Zhang Yi didn't see any ships approaching, so Kelim led people to the Jinfeng. After Kelim left with Zhang Yi, the ship fell into an eerie silence for a while. No one knows what will happen next. Only a few Colombian soldiers held guns in their hands and looked at everyone with indifferent expressions. Even the unconvinced attitude of Liu Xian and the sailors were ignored by them. Absolute strength gives them absolute confidence. This is the confidence of the world's #1 navy. Zhang Yi followed Kelim and quickly passed through the rain curtain and arrived on the Copernicus. This cruiser is very advanced, equipped with a variety of cannons and even carries conventional missiles. On the sea, the destructive power it can create is comparable to a top Delta level alien. But as a dead thing, it still has flaws after all. For example, its internal defense is not that strong. The threat from the Copernicus is the greatest. This is also the reason why Zhang Yi made this choice. Chapter 871. I'm the investigation captain of Jiangnan region. After boarding the ship, Zhang Yi was carefully inspected again before being taken to the cabin. The shackles on his hands were specially made of jet black metal with a red light shining on them. It's a miniature bomb. Once Zhang Yi tries to break away or resist, he will be detonated immediately. Captain Christian Connor couldn't wait and asked him to bring Zhang Yi to him as soon as possible. Looking at the ordinary looking yellow man in front of him, a smile appeared on his face. Tell me, what's your name? What position do you hold in Huaxu country? Zhang Yi raised his head and looked at him and said calmly, my name is Zhang Yi, captain of the Jiangnan region investigation team. When Connor heard these words, his head didn't come back to reality for a while. After all, they rarely interact with Jiangnan region on weekdays, and they don't know what the investigation captain means. It's just that the name Zhang Yi is slightly familiar to him. Yes, I seem to have heard this name somewhere. However, the next moment, he saw a cruel smile on the lips of the yellow-skinned young man. Connor's brain speed suddenly increased. He thought of an incident that attracted many people's attention internationally some time ago. The Neon Ronin landed in the Jiangnan area of Huaxu Kingdom, and then a captain-level figure in Jiangnan rebelled. The person who then turned the tide and calmed the crisis was Zhang Yi. F***K. Connor's pupils narrowed, and he cursed loudly. But a black flame-like substance appeared in Zhang Yi's hands, which directly melted away the strong handcuffs. If you don't do it, you will never stop. Anyway, in order to protect the secret of the source of God, we must break up with the Colombian Navy. Then, there is no need to worry. Everyone on this boat must die today. The raging power of the void erupted directly in the cabin of the Copernicus. No one on the entire ship could imagine that there was an inconspicuous civilian ship on this vast sea of ice. They will actually encounter the most advanced combat power in the Jiangnan region. Connor was less than 3 meters away from Zhang Yi. Between life and death, he used his superpower immediately. Dragon turns into a beast. A layer of science scales adhered to his body, and his figure surged to more than 3 meters tall. The hands turned into a pair of huge and terrifying sharp claws that were more than 1 meter long. The captain of the Copernicus, Lieutenant Colonel Christian Connor, has a supernatural power index of 6,500 points. Looking at the entire Colombian Ocean Fleet, he is also an upper-class alien. But at this time, Zhang Yi was racing against time. Therefore, he will not retain any combat power. The flames of the void wrapped around Zhang Yi's body and burned fiercely, then spread crazily in all directions. Zhang Yi himself holds the Holy Judge and directly attacks Christian Connor himself. Connor's pair of indestructible dragon claws were cut open like tofu the moment they touched the Holy Inquisitor, burning the black flames of the void. The Holy Judge cut off a pair of huge dragon claws from him and slashed them directly along his head. Without any obstruction, his whole body was chopped vertically from the top of his head to the soles of his feet and was directly cut in half. What? Zhang Yi let out an angry roar, waved the horizontal knife in his hand without stopping, and began to wreak havoc on the entire ship. What he wants to do is to break the communication system of the Copernicus, to prevent it from communicating with the Ocean Fleet headquarters on Fly Island. Although if you do this, the other party will definitely notice the abnormality immediately. However, at least it can make the other party misjudge his strength. As long as the other party does not know that he, who represents the highest combat power in the Jiangnan region, has come to Danyang, the other party's response will not be timely and accurate. And the time gap gained is Zhang Yi's chance to escape. Boom. Zhang Yi exploded with the strongest combat power, just like dismantling a Gundam with his bare hands. He wanted to dismantle the entire ship and kill every soldier. Faced with such a top-notch stranger whose combat skills exceeded his standards, the mere soldiers on the Copernicus were unable to resist. Even the soldiers of the Colombian Navy, who were armed to the teeth and were proud of being the strongest navy in the world, were as if they were made of paper when they met Zhang Yi. The flames of the void are burning, but the way it kills is not to burn, but to directly erase. From this point of view, Zhang Yi's way of killing is very humane. They didn't even have time to feel the pain before they were swallowed up by the void. On the Jinfeng, She Haicheng and others were still mocking Zhang Yi. Lao Xian and others. They saw Zhang Yi being handcuffed. Lao Xian and others dropped their weapons and said nothing, so they began to vent their emotions over the past few days. Hey, weren't you guys very arrogant in the past? You can't be arrogant now. I'm a citizen of Colombia, and from now on you are only qualified to be slaves in service. Lao Xian and others just looked at them coldly without any response. They trusted Zhang Yi very much, so they didn't bother to pay attention to these clowns. However, this approach made She Haicheng and others feel that they were scared. But at this moment, a deafening explosion suddenly came from the Copernicus in the distance. All eyes were drawn to the past. The Copernicus, 5 nautical miles away, was actually emitting wisps of black smoke, which didn't look right. But it was too far away, and no one could see clearly what was happening there. Several Colombian soldiers were stunned for a moment. They were dumbfounded and didn't understand why the advanced Copernicus was acting abnormally. A soldier quickly took out his walkie-talkie and tried to contact the other side. But the next moment, a person jumped out of thin air on the deck. Zhang Yi's eyes were extremely terrifying. It was the extremely cold murderous intention after killing many people. Sure, the holy judge waved twice casually in the air, passing through several elegant arcs. The 6 Colombian sailors on board did not realize what was going on, and their bodies were cut into 7 or 8 pieces. The head was split in 2, and the arms and legs were also broken into 2 pieces. They died instantly, without any sense of death, and even their eyes did not have any gleam of fear. Silence. An extremely oppressive silence. Everyone in the Yanliu group was shocked by Zhang Yi's sudden appearance and sudden killing of all the Navy soldiers. Zhang Yi handsomely held a sword and swung it hard, causing a large pool of blood to splash onto the deck. He didn't even look at She Haicheng and others next to him. Instead, he said to Lao Xian, "Leave here at full speed immediately and turn off all radars and communication systems." No matter how powerful the Colombian Navy's reconnaissance capabilities are, as long as they turn off all communication devices, the other party will not be able to find them. But doing so also comes at a huge cost. The other party cannot find them, and they will lose their direction in the vast sea. Just like a person walking in the dark, if you turn off the light in your hand, it will be difficult for others to spot you. But you yourself have to enter the darkness. But now, Zhang Yi can only choose to do this. Otherwise, when the large forces of the Colombian Navy and top aliens arrived, even he would not be able to guarantee safety. Chapter 872 Lord of the Ocean. Lao Xian received Zhang Yi's order and immediately arranged for someone to carry out the operation without saying a word. As an old sailor, he naturally understood the danger of doing so. But right now, this is their only choice. Turn off the lights and let everyone wander in the dark forest. Only the weak will have a chance to survive. Otherwise, they will only be killed by the strong. The members of the Yanliu group stared at Zhang Yi in astonishment. They still didn't know what happened. Boom. 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 Continuous explosions sounded in the distance, setting off waves of terrifying waves, all the way to the Jinfeng. Everyone looked over and saw that the powerful Colombian warship Copernicus was burning with flames, and then the hull tilted rapidly and began to sink into the sea. That warship was actually sunk. Zhang Yi couldn't believe it. People like them have no idea what the outside world has become. It is also impossible to understand the destructive power of a stranger of Zhang Yi's level. But now, the real Copernicus is finished. Zhang Yi appeared on the Jinfeng intact. The answer is self-evident. Zhang Yi single-handedly destroyed a powerful Colombian warship. Everyone looked at Zhang Yi as if they were looking at a monster, more like they were looking at a god. Even SYNOPSIS, who talked the most, suppressed the words she wanted to accuse Zhang Yi at this time. She was completely terrified. But at this moment, the expressions on some people's faces are as grey as death, fear, and despair. It was Xie Haicheng and his gang who were still ridiculing Zhang Yi, Lao Xian and others just a few seconds ago. They originally thought that the overall situation was settled, and they used their ingenuity to destroy Zhang Yi and other people on the Jinfeng. He also received the blessing of the Colombian Navy and could live a happy life from now on. But the disillusionment of the dream came unexpectedly. The Colombian Navy, which they thought was invincible and so powerful that it was hard to find an opponent, was actually sunk by Zhang Yi single-handedly, a Sichuan class cruiser. He's not a human, he's a monster. The traitors already feel the approach of death. However, Zhang Yi didn't even look at them, and the pressure was overwhelming. Xie Haicheng made a gumble sound in his throat. He raised his hand and forced a flattering smile. Mr. Zhang, please listen to my explanation. Zhang Yi didn't even look at him, but walked to the cabin on his own. He wanted to call Zhao. In addition, we need to explain the situation here to Zhu Zheng and ask him to arrange for people to come to assist. Zhu Zheng will definitely find a way, unless he is willing to give up important information about the source of God. Zhu Zheng walked up to Zhang Yi with an embarrassed look on his face. I'm sorry, I just thought. Contact Zhu Shui. This is the last time. After the contact, your communication equipment will basically not be used again in the short term. Zhu was already very frightened at this time. The pressure brought by the Colombian Navy just now was too strong. The strongest sense of oppression came from Zhang Yi, who sank the Copernicus alone. But don't we become headless flies? There is no other way now but to take it one step at a time. Things happened so suddenly that Zhang Yi didn't think about what would happen next. But at least now, they have to leave this dangerous place and call for help. Zhang Yi and Zhu came to Zhu's room. Thomas Wales made Zhang Yi frown and made Zhu close his eyes forcefully, trying to calm down his anger. She regretted her decision more than once. There is no point in bringing this child along, except causing a huge burden. She called SYNOPSIS over and asked her to take the children elsewhere quickly so as not to delay their business. Then she closed the door and took out her communication device to contact Zhu Zheng. Zhang Yi quickly informed Zhu Zheng of the incident. Zhu Zheng's face turned extremely serious as expected, because a head-on collision with the Colombian Navy was the last thing they wanted to see. But it has already happened, and there is no point in avoiding it. Have you obtained the information about the source of God? Zhu Zheng asked. Zhang Yi smiled slightly and then pointed to his head. Zhu Zheng was silent for a moment. He rubbed the back of his hand with his hand. Zhang Yi could see his hesitation. But after a few seconds, Zhu Zheng still said, Zhang Yi, your ability is enough to support the ship drifting on the sea. What you did is correct. Temporarily cut off all outside contact. You must not be discovered by them. I will use all means to support you. Zhang Yi said, okay, I will do as you say. I will wait for the arrival of reinforcement at sea. He didn't ask for much. The current situation looks dangerous, but in fact it is not safe at all. But that was not the case for Zhang Yi. As a last resort, he had the last resort, which was to abandon the entire ship and leave with only Zhao. It depends on how important Zhu is in Zhu Zheng's mind. Anyway, nothing will happen to him and Zhao. Zhu Zheng continued. Next, you must change your course and no longer pass through the waters around Neon. It is best to detour from the southwest area. If you get there, I will ask Team Rose to meet you. They happen to be on a mission in the Southwest Sea. Remember, a warning appeared in ZHU Zheng's eyes. Never have a head-on conflict with the Colombian Navy. Because according to the information obtained so far, there is a stranger in their ocean fleet with a superpower index of up to 18,000 points. His code name is Lord of the Ocean. It is precisely because of the existence of this person that the expansion of the East China Sea region into the ocean region will be very difficult. So, you must not rely on your own strength to confront them head-on. ZHU Young didn't have much reaction to this, because she didn't understand what a power index of 18,000 points meant. But Zhang Yi felt a chill coming down his back. That was a powerful alien with an ability index nearly twice as a powerful being at the Epsilon level. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. I understand. I will head towards the Southwest Sea. ZHU Zheng comforted him and said, you don't have to worry too much. On the vast sea, it's like finding a needle in a haystack for them to find your location. It's not that easy. And I will also find a way to get reinforcement for you. Delay the strength of the ocean fleet. ZHU Zheng's so-called reinforcement can only be one. The only East China Sea region and the ocean region that can compete with the Colombian Ocean Fleet. Among the 6 regions of Huaxu Kingdom, Donghai region has the most powerful navy, and its strength is even close to that of Shengjing region, which has the strongest overall strength. Zhang Yi asked curiously, are there Epsilon level aliens in the East China Sea region? ZHU Zheng's eyes were dark. Donghai region has never admitted this, but I think it is very possible. Chapter 873 Escape into the Darkness. After listening to ZHU Zheng's words, Zhang Yi felt relieved. But after ending the call, they could only drift blindly at sea. Without the guidance of an advanced navigation system, they could only rely on the navigation experience of Lao Shan and other veteran crew members to fumble their way to the Southwest Sea in order to avoid the pursuit of the Colombian Ocean Fleet. ZHU Young also wanted to say something to ZHU Zheng. But ZHU Zheng just told her lightly that she would follow Zhang Yi's instructions in everything else. ZHU Young nodded in agreement. The communication ended quickly, and Zhang Yi confiscated the communication device directly to prevent ZHU Young from having a brain attack in the future and contacting the outside world privately. I'll return your things to you when we get back to shore, Zhang Yi said. ZHU Young curled his lips and said, you just don't trust me. Zhang Yi nodded. You still have some self-awareness. ZHU Young was fuming, but he could only clench his fists and go sulking alone. Zhang Yi ignored her and went back to the room first, taking Zhao Kena out of the dark room. Then he simply explained the current situation to her and took her to the control room in front. You will be drifting on the sea next, but don't worry too much. With me here, no one can hurt you at all, Zhang Yi said, and took a deep look at Zhao Kena. But you must also be careful not to develop feelings for anyone on the ship, because we have to abandon them at any time and leave by ourselves. Zhao Kena pursed her lips and said with a bright smile, don't worry, I'm not a fool like ZHU Young. We have gone through so many life and death crises together, and I know how to choose. Zhang Yi nodded in satisfaction. Girls who have gone through the cruel baptism of the doomsday are sensible. The two came to the control room. At this time, the entire ship had completely shut down all communication equipment, and even the communicators in everyone's hands were confiscated by Lao Shan. Anything that might send a signal to the outside world must be excluded. Otherwise, they may be attacked by intercontinental missiles in a few minutes. Zhang Yi has never tried to use the dimensional gate to absorb intercontinental missiles. But according to his speculation, with his current strength, if he wanted to absorb that kind of terrifying power, he might be in danger of collapsing in another dimension. This is the power of the top weapons and equipment of human science and technology, which still cannot be underestimated. Zhang Yi looked at the cabin, where all electronic instruments had been closed. Lao Shan handed over a navigation chart. We have followed your instructions, and are heading west at full speed. But if we want to return to Huaxu Kingdom, we have to sail at least 5,000 nautical miles. That is a route of more than 9,000 kilometers. In addition, there is no navigation system and we must rely on human experience to find the route. It is unknown how long we will drift at sea. Even. Lao Shan licked his dry lips, his tone hesitant. Zhang Yi said, if you have something to say, say it directly. Now is not the time to say nice things. Lao Shan said, it's not surprising that we have been drifting at sea for half a year. Zhang Yi frowned slightly, but this situation was within his expectation. Don't worry so much now, just go west. We are not short of supplies. It's okay to spend more time. The key is to avoid the ocean fleet. He reached over the map and nodded. If you go all the way west and further north, you will reach the Nanyang Islands area. When I get here, I will find a way. Zhang Yi's tone was very determined. This surprised Lao Shan and others. But, if our ship appears near here, it will definitely be discovered by the surrounding countries. There is no guarantee that they will not inform the Colombian Navy on Rotherfly Island. Zhang Yi said calmly, of course I have a way, you don't have to worry, just do as I say. He was not unprepared for going to sea this time. Although the current situation is very troublesome, it is also within his plan. This is not because of his clever calculations, but because he is used to considering the worst aspects of things in order to make the best preparations. When Lao Shan and others heard what Zhang Yi said, they felt a little more secure in their originally unconfident hearts. Everyone quickly performed their duties, controlled the Jingfeng at full speed, and headed towards the Western Sea. And Zhang Yi doesn't know what will happen next. He can only take one step at a time. The biggest expectation may still depend on ZHU Zheng's arrangements. Mr. Zhang, what should we do with those guys? Lao Shan winked outside. Mentioning them, Zhang Yi's eyes immediately narrowed, and his undisguised murderous intent made Lao Shan swallow his saliva. He had rarely seen such an angry Zhang Yi. At this time, blood must be used to slightly alleviate the anger in his heart. If it weren't for the informant from Shehecheng and those dogs, they would have been able to pass through the patrol area of the Colombian Navy in no time. As long as they enter the territorial waters of Huax's state, they will be completely safe. But I didn't expect that it would fail because of those dogs. Let's go and talk to them. Zhang Yi had a smile on his face, and his smile was extremely bright. Lao Shan and the crew also had murderous intent in their eyes. There is no one who doesn't hate those dog days. They came out of the cabin. At this time, two crew members were guarding them on the deck with guns in their hands. Shehecheng, Bmo, Zi Yunfen, Eisenman, and Rudolph were kneeling on the deck, shivering. Not far away, the people from the Yanliu group were also there. But their eyes were full of worry, and they didn't care much about the lives of these people. They are here to wait for Zhang Yi to come over and tell them the situation at hand. Su Nuangxi hid behind ZHU Yunk. Her face turned pale. When the Colombian soldiers came just now, she wanted to follow them. She was afraid that Zhang Yi would also liquidate them. But Zhang Yi just gave her a cold look. He knew that Su Nuangxi did not participate in this event. She was usually with ZHU Yunk, and she didn't have such conditions. The point is, for someone like her, it is impossible for guys like Shehecheng and others to play with her. She's either bad, or just plain stupid. But stupid people are often more disgusting than bad people. Zhang Yi walked to the deck. As soon as Shehecheng saw Zhang Yi, he immediately started to kneel on the ground and kowtow vigorously, shouting, Mr. Zhang, I'm innocent. They forced me to do what I did. Please forgive me this time. I must be your dog well, and I can do whatever you want me to do. Bmo's face turned pale as he looked at Zhang Yi's constant pleading. Don't kill me. I know it was wrong. Please no, please. Zhang Yi's expression calmed down. He knelt down and glanced at everyone's face. Shehecheng and the others felt as if a knife had cut across their faces. A few people even peed their pants. Tell me how you did it. Zhang Yi asked lightly. Chapter 874. Soon, the few people who wanted to survive revealed the entire plan. Zi Changming, who was watching the show, suddenly turned dark. Mr. Zhang, I definitely did not conspire with them. Zhang Yi glanced at Zi Changming and said calmly, I know, you are not to blame for this matter. If it is really to blame, as the captain, I should be the first person responsible. When Zi Changming heard this, his heart suddenly felt relieved, and his eyes couldn't help but become moist. It's really rare to meet such a good leader who doesn't blame others. Drag that woman over here too. Zhang Yi stretched out his hand and pointed at Jinjimi in the crowd. When Cha Hee-sung and others were about to run away, Kim Mi was completely stupid. because from the beginning to the end, Zhang kept a secret and did not tell Kim Kimmy the purpose of letting her do that. She is just a puppet on strings. After staying in the silver entertainment industry for a long time, she has also learned not to ask too many questions that should not be asked. In order to express himself, Zhang walked over, grabbed Jinjimu's hair, dragged her to the ground, and threw her to the deck. Jinjimu shed tears of pain and kept begging Zhang Yi for mercy. "Mr. Zhang, I don't know anything about this. It's all Zhang. He asked me to do that." Zhang cursed angrily. "Damn bitch, what does this matter have to do with me? Don't slander me indiscriminately. I was also coerced." Kim Kimmy couldn't help but become angry when she saw Chae-sung blaming the blame. She pointed at him and yelled hoarsely, "You abominable scum. You planned to escape, but you didn't take me with you when you left. In your eyes, am I just a tool?" Chae-sung scolded, "Dirty bitch, you dare to talk back to me. If it weren't for me, you would still be in Silla, taking turns to accompany those cheebles every day. I gave you the honor of being the prosecutor's wife, and you have to pay the price for it and obey me completely." Zhang Yi just watched silently as they fought each other, biting each other in the face of a life and death crisis, trying to drag each other down even if he died. When the Colombian Navy arrived, Kim Kimmy also looked at a loss. Obviously, she was unaware of the matter. So Zhang Yi can spare her life, because she still has some value. "Laozi, are you interested in this woman?" Zhang Yi asked Zhang. Zhang was stunned for a moment and quickly shook his head. No, Mr. Zhang, please do whatever you want with her. I have no objections." Zhang Yi waved his hand. "I'll leave it to you." Of course Zhang Yi knew what Jinjimu had been doing on the ship for half a month. She is just a silly woman with some looks but no brains. She has been used as a tool by Zhang. It is said that in order to win the favor of a certain plutocrat, she even did not hesitate to perform alternative dance performances. Instead of killing her, it would be better to use it as a favor to Zhang. Winning people's hearts is also something you need to do as a boss. Zhang couldn't help but feel touched when he heard that Zhang Yi treated him so favorably. Although there are some women in Choyu base, the decent looking ones have long been picked away by the base's upper management. Of course he would be happy to have someone like Kim Kim be his mother-in-law. Zhang walked over, pulled Jinjimu aside, and first gave her a fierce warning. "From now on, you are my woman. You must listen to Mr. Zhang and me honestly, and don't have other thoughts." Jin Kimmy had experienced a huge fright at this time. Her face turned pale, and she was naturally willing to do anything to survive. She nodded in agreement. When Zhang saw that she could survive, he quickly cried, "As long as it allows me to survive, I can do anything. No matter what. Please show mercy." Zhang Yi walked over slowly and looked at them all with a smile. "Now, I can have a nice chat with you. I'm very surprised. Why would you let go of your good life and choose to betray me?" Several people had pale faces, and no one dared to speak. The smile on Zhang Yi's face became even stronger. "If you tell me, I can make him die quickly. If you don't say it, you will definitely regret it." Several people's faces became increasingly ugly, and they kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. "We didn't mean to harm you. We just wanted to go to Colombia." Bayamo cried. "For God's sake, please spare me, please." Zhang Yi smiled and said, "Sorry, I'm not religious. Do you have anything else to say?" Engineer Easeman forced himself to calm down. "You can't kill us. You have already sunk a warship in Colombia, and now you're holding us hostage has been exposed. If you massacre Colombian citizens again, it will be an added crime. Let us live, so at least you still have a bargaining chip in your hands to negotiate with the Colombian Navy." Zhang Yi couldn't help laughing. Smiling, his eyes became cold and full of contempt. "You think too highly of yourselves. If you had any value at all, they would have come and taken you away. But in fact, you are insignificant and worthless. You actually think that you are valuable enough to make them turn against you? Stop dreaming. You know nothing about the apocalypse." He stood up and said, "Well, it seems that you all have a tough mouth, and I don't have that much time to play with you. Since you have chosen the most painful way to die, of course I will make it happen for you." Hearing what Zhang Yi said, several people kneeling on the ground began to wail desperately. "You can't do this to us. We just want to live well. What's wrong with us? Zhang Yi didn't want to continue talking to them. But after hearing these words, I couldn't help but turn around and asked, then let me ask you, have I abused you since you got on the ship? Have you ever been short of food? Several people asked this question were speechless. Zi Yunfan argued, but you killed several neon people like Yamada Masanami, which will inevitably make people think too much. You can't blame us. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. Look, you always have so many reasons. And my opinion is, put in more effort. No one understood what Zhang Yi meant in the second half of his sentence. But they soon understood. Zhang Yi asked with a smile, have you ever eaten chuan zhang? This kind of food is rare abroad. As an ethnic Chinese, Zi Yunfan often returns to China and knows that this is a special food of Huaxu country. I ate before. Zhang Yi nodded. That's good. He turned around and said to Lao Shan and others, chop them all for me, make them into skewers, and bake them on the bow of the boat. Unless these traitors are cut into pieces, it will be difficult to relieve the hatred in Zhang Yi's heart. Chapter 875 John Cardiles. Zhang Yi took Zhao Ke back to the cabin. However, he told Lao Shan that everyone on the ship must be present to see with their own eyes the fate of the betrayers. Everyone, including those in the lower cabins, was brought on deck. Zhu Yunk and Su Nuangxi are no exception. There was no excuse to make. They had to witness the execution of the betrayer with their own eyes. However, because the scene was too cruel, Zhang Yi was a kind-hearted person and couldn't bear to see it with his own eyes, so he took Zhao Ke away. Soon, the screams outside began to sound heartbreaking. Lao Shan asked Zi Changming to do the cooking. After all, as a cook, he was a good knife player. According to the standards of chuan zhang, each person must bear a penalty of at least several hundred knives. Then use sharpened wooden sticks or iron drills to string them together and stand on the bow of the boat. This punishment was still fresh in the memory of everyone on the ship, and it also allowed them to see Zhang Yi's cruel treatment of traitors. Even if they closed their eyes and didn't dare to look, the heart-rending howl could still be heard in their ears. Lu Dahai looked at the executed guys with a calm expression, a mocking smile on his lips. I've known for a long time that you bastards are unreliable. Li Zhangyu, Zhang Weiwei, and Ma Wenzheng were thankful. They did not misjudge the situation and make the wrong decision. At the same time, they were also deeply shocked by Zhang Yi's strength. Even though he is also a stranger, compared with Zhang Yi, Li Zhangyu is simply weak and pitiful. They no longer dare to have any bad thoughts in their hearts. Zhu Yunk and Su Nuangxi couldn't stand this scene and vomited countless times. Both of them vomited out their gastric juices, and while crying, they cursed Zhang Yi for being so cruel and inhumane. Forget about the execution. They were forced to watch the entire process, which was an extremely cruel torture for the onlookers. But complaining is complaining. Few people sympathized with the fate of these betrayers, because originally they would be able to successfully reach the other shore soon and live a stable life. But now, they have to continue drifting on the sea for unknown years. And it could be sunk by Colombian missiles at any time. All this is because of these hundreds of selfish guys in front of us. Zhang Yi carried out the most brutal execution on a group of traitors such as Shi Haicheng. If he did not do this, he would not be able to vent his inner anger. But the matter has come to this, and the next voyage must continue. In order to avoid being caught by the Colombian Navy, he had to turn off all communication equipment on the ship, including sonar and radar. Everyone's communication equipment was confiscated. At the same time, turn on the military-grade shielding equipment on the ship. This also means that they will become blind at sea and can only rely on the instinctive judgment of sailors to navigate. However, he also knew how much trouble the leakage of God's source intelligence would cause. Next, it depends on how ZHU send coordinates. Fly Island, Colombian Ocean Fleet Headquarters. Before the blizzard came, the ships in the port had already been sent to the deep sea area. Therefore, only some small ships near the port were completely frozen, becoming a beautiful scenery on the coastline. However, on the outer edge of the ice, there are hundreds of ships surrounding the Fly Island naval base like stars over the moon. The grey-white steel battleship stands tall like a steel city wall. The huge main gun on the battleship extends for more than 10 meters and can easily destroy a ship of several thousand tons. But deeper in the ocean, the core of the fleet, the deep-sea monster aircraft carrier that can carry dozens of fighter planes, fell silent. During the Ice Age, super large aircraft carriers have gradually become unable to adapt to the marine environment. An overly large and clumsy body consumes exponentially more energy. Nowadays, transportation energy itself is a huge problem. Even if fuel is transported from Colombia, which is rich in oil resources, the consumption during the journey will be several times higher. No matter how you look at it, the cost performance of aircraft carriers has been greatly reduced. And because its goal is too obvious, it is very easy to become the target of the deep sea overlord. Coupled with extremely cold temperatures, the functions of fighter aircraft are also greatly affected. Therefore, the existence of aircraft carriers began to be slowly replaced by small boats during the Ice Age. However, even if it loses the advantage of aircraft carriers, the Colombian Ocean Fleet, as one of the most powerful naval forces in Colombia, still has the strong strength to dominate a sea area. Everything is in order at the naval base, and the freezing cold temperatures force the soldiers to wear special cold-proof clothing. Navy soldiers armed with guns guarded the area around the base. Suddenly, a muffled sound of rumbling came from a distance. The sound attracted the Navy's attention. They looked towards the sea and saw a white wave suddenly appeared on the sea level, which was composed of seawater and ice and snow fragments. It was more than 10 meters above the sea level and headed towards the coast at high speed. The roar became louder and louder, and the sound could be heard clearly throughout the Upper Fly Island Naval Base. Sitting in the Navy commander's office, General Douglas, a 5-star admiral with a pipe in his mouth, looked out the window and said calmly, "Cartier's is back, bring him to me." Next to him, Navy Captain Puncabal Cato saluted with a military salute, then turned and walked out of the office. The expression on his face was a little gloomy. This bastard Cardiles is getting more and more arrogant. The huge movement and wonders on the sea attracted more and more people to watch. The entire naval base was alarmed. Looking at it like this, Lieutenant Colonel Cardiles must be back. He always likes to make such a big noise. But this is what he deserves. If I were like him, with such extraordinary abilities, I would be much more arrogant than him. Hey, you don't want to think that you should be the commander of the Navy. Not necessarily impossible. The sailors joked easily, but when they looked at the sea, they were full of envy. It wasn't until the huge white wave reached 2 kilometers outside the naval base that people could clearly see what it was. School of fish, huge schools of fish. Dozens of mutated whales as huge as hills cleared the way, followed by all kinds of mutated sea creatures, rushing towards the Upper Fly Island Naval Base. There are so many mutated creatures that it's impossible to identify their species. Perhaps the entire ocean's biological chain is gathered here. Standing on the head of the largest whale, which is more than 200 meters long, is a man wearing a blue and white combat uniform and a sea blue helmet, with only his lower jaw exposed. The most powerful stranger at the Colombian Naval Base, one of the biggest trump cards, a being with a deterrent power comparable to the strategic H submarine, the strongest individual soldier, Lord of the Ocean, John Cardiles. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.